Mom, you're a burden, a stingy old woman clinging to our money. Transfer it now, or we'll make you regret you're still alive.
Mom, you're a burden, a stingy old woman clinging to our money. Transfer it now, or we'll make you regret you're still alive. Imagine hearing your son, the child you sacrificed your life to raise, hurl those cruel words over the phone as you prepare a Christmas feast for your family. Your lifelong love twisted into a tool for extortion, for threats. What would you do when your heart breaks just before Christmas Eve? Tonight, one mother's story will chill you to the core and make you question, is family truly a safe haven? Welcome to Voices of Auntie Rose, where stories of family, forgiveness, resilience, and the courage to rise above betrayal come to life with heart and soul. We're so glad you're here, joining a community that celebrates the unbreakable human spirit. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an inspiring story. And it would be amazing if you could like this video, share it, or drop a comment letting us know what time it is and which city or country you're watching from. Your shares and comments are the greatest gift, the powerful inspiration that keeps this channel growing and spreading meaningful life lessons every single day. Now, let's dive into today's story. The smell of cinnamon and nutmeg filled my kitchen as I carefully placed the last batch of gingerbread cookies on the cooling rack. It was December 20th, and I'd been preparing for Christmas dinner for weeks. At 72 years old, hosting the family Christmas had become my greatest joy since my husband Robert passed away 5 years ago. The vintage Waterford crystal glasses were polished. The sterling silver cutlery that had belonged to Robert's grandmother gleamed on the dining room table, and the 12-foot Douglas fir in the living room sparkled with ornaments collected over 48 years of marriage. I paused at the mantelpiece, adjusting the stockings I'd hung with such care. Daniel's stocking, hand-knitted when he was born 38 years ago, hung next to Ashley's designer stocking I'd purchased from Nordstrom 3 years ago when they got engaged. My hands trembled slightly as I straightened the family photo from last Christmas. Daniel's arm around my shoulders, Ashley's perfect smile, all of us wearing matching Christmas sweaters I'd bought. How different everything seemed just 1 year ago. The phone rang, interrupting my thoughts. Daniel's name appeared on the screen and my heart lifted. "Sweetheart, I was just thinking about you," I said warmly. "I've made your favorite pecan pie, and the prime rib is marinating. What time should I expect you and Ashley for dinner on Christmas Eve?" There was a pause that stretched too long. In the background, I heard Ashley's voice, sharp and commanding. "Just tell her, Danny. Stop being such a coward." "Mom?" Daniel's voice was different, colder than the winter wind rattling my windows. "About Christmas dinner. We need to talk." My stomach clenched. "Is everything all right? Are you ill?" "We're not coming." The words hung in the air like icicles ready to fall. I gripped the kitchen counter, my knuckles white against the granite. "Not coming?" "But it's Christmas. We always—" "Things have changed," he interrupted, his tone businesslike, as if canceling a dental appointment. "Ashley and I have decided to start our own traditions. We're going to Aspen with her family." "Aspen?" My voice cracked. "But I've been preparing for weeks. I bought a 20-pound turkey, made 3 kinds of pie, your grandmother's stuffing recipe." Ashley's voice came through clearly now. She must have taken the phone. "Margaret, you need to understand that we're adults with our own lives. We can't keep catering to your emotional needs every holiday. It's honestly becoming a burden." A burden. The word sliced through me like a knife through butter. This was the woman I'd helped with a $40,000 down payment for their house just 6 months ago. The woman whose student loans I'd quietly paid off, $68,000, as an engagement gift. The woman who called me mom when she needed something. "Ashley, I don't understand. Just last week you were asking about my mother's emerald ring, saying how beautiful it would look with your Christmas dress." About that, Ashley's voice turned syrupy sweet. The tone I'd learned meant she wanted something. "We'll need you to transfer the December payment for the mortgage." $5,000 as usual. Daniel lost some hours at the firm, and things are tight. "You wouldn't want us to lose the house, would you? Especially not at Christmas." My legs suddenly felt weak. I sank into the kitchen chair, the same chair where Daniel used to do his homework, where he'd told me about his first girlfriend, where we'd celebrated his acceptance to law school. "You're canceling Christmas with me but still expect me to pay your mortgage?" "Don't be dramatic, Margaret," Ashley snapped, all pretense of sweetness gone. "The two things are completely unrelated. Your financial obligations to us don't change just because we have other plans." Financial obligations. Not help, not gift. Obligations. Let me speak to Daniel, I managed to say, my voice barely a whisper. He's busy, Ashley replied curtly. Just make sure the transfer goes through by the 23rd. We're counting on it. Oh, and we'll need an extra $2,000 for the Aspen trip. Consider it our Christmas gift. The line went dead. I sat there, still holding the phone, staring at the Christmas feast I'd been preparing. The tears didn't come immediately. First came the nausea, a violent churning that sent me rushing to the bathroom. I barely made it, retching until nothing was left but bile and the bitter taste of betrayal. My chest felt tight, each breath a struggle. The room spun as I gripped the bathroom counter, my reflection in the mirror showing a woman I didn't recognize, pale, shaking, eyes wide with shock. Somehow, I made it back to the kitchen. The gingerbread cookies I'd shaped into little angels seemed to mock me. I picked one up, remembering how Daniel used to help me decorate them, his chubby toddler fingers covered in frosting. The memory contrasted so sharply with the cold voice on the phone that I crushed the cookie in my palm, watching the pieces fall to the floor like my shattered expectations. The pain in my chest intensified. For a moment, I wondered if I was having a heart attack. Perhaps that would be easier than facing the truth that my only son, the child I'd raised alone after Robert's death, had become someone I didn't recognize. Someone who saw me not as his mother, but as an ATM with inconvenient feelings. The ceramic shards from the crushed gingerbread cookie were still scattered across my kitchen floor when another wave of dizziness struck. I grabbed the edge of the counter, but my fingers couldn't maintain their grip. The world tilted sideways, and suddenly I was falling, my hip striking the corner of the kitchen island with a sickening crack. The pain that exploded through my body was nothing compared to the agony in my chest, a crushing weight that made each breath feel like drowning in air. "Help," I whispered to the empty house, but my voice was swallowed by the cheerful Christmas music still playing from the radio, Bing Crosby crooning about being home for Christmas. The irony wasn't lost on me as I lay there on the cold tile, watching the twinkling lights from the Christmas tree blur through my tears. Somehow, I managed to reach my phone, which had fallen with me. My fingers shook so violently I could barely dial 911. When the dispatcher answered, I could only gasp out my address before another wave of pain consumed me. Time became fluid. Minutes or hours passed before I heard the sirens, saw the paramedics burst through my door, felt them lifting me onto a stretcher while asking questions I couldn't quite process. The ambulance ride was a blur of oxygen masks and worried voices. Blood pressures dropping, possible cardiac event, trauma to the left hip. Medical terminology floated around me like snowflakes, each one cold and clinical. All I could think about was Daniel. They would call him. He was still my emergency contact. Surely when he heard his mother was being rushed to the hospital 3 days before Christmas, he would come. He had to come. I woke to the sterile brightness of fluorescent lights and the steady beep of monitors. Dr. Patricia Chen stood at the foot of my bed, reviewing a chart with a concerned expression that made my stomach clench with fresh anxiety. "Margaret, you're awake. Good." Her voice was gentle but serious. "You've had what we call a stress-induced cardiac episode. Essentially, your heart went into dangerous arrhythmia due to extreme emotional distress. Combined with the fall, you've also fractured your hip. We'll need to operate, but first, we need to stabilize your heart." "My son," I croaked, my throat raw. "Is Daniel here?" Dr. Chen's expression softened with something that looked dangerously like pity. "We've called the number you listed." Someone named Ashley answered. She said they'd handle things when they returned from their trip. Handle things, like I was a package left on the doorstep, an inconvenience to be dealt with later. "She asked about your insurance," Dr. Chen continued carefully. "Wanted to make sure the hospital bills wouldn't affect your estate planning." The monitors began beeping faster as my heart rate spiked. A nurse rushed in, adjusting my IV, while Dr. Chen placed a calming hand on my shoulder. "Margaret, you need to stay calm. Your heart can't take another episode like the one that brought you here." But how could I stay calm? My son's wife was more concerned about my estate than my survival. The realization hit me with the force of a sledgehammer. They were waiting for me to die. All those years of financial support, over $200,000 in total when I tallied it up, weren't investments in a loving relationship. They were down payments on an inheritance they felt entitled to collect. The next 3 days passed in a medicated haze. Nurses came and went, their cheerful Christmas scrubs a mockery of the season I should have been celebrating. On December 23rd, the day Ashley had demanded the mortgage payment, my phone buzzed with increasing frequency. I could see the messages piling up without opening them. "Margaret, the transfer hasn't come through. This is unacceptable. You're being selfish and manipulative. If we lose this house, it's on you." On Christmas Eve, as I lay alone in my hospital bed with a morphine drip for company, the door suddenly burst open. But it wasn't Daniel coming to check on his injured mother. It was Ashley, her face twisted with rage, designer heels clicking aggressively against the linoleum floor. Daniel trailed behind her like a whipped dog, avoiding my gaze. "What the hell kind of stunt are you pulling, Margaret?" Ashley's voice was shrill enough to make the elderly woman in the next bed stir. "We know you're not really that sick. The nurse said you're conscious and capable of making decisions, so why haven't you sent the money?" I stared at this woman who stood in my hospital room on Christmas Eve, mere hours after my heart surgery, demanding money. No concern for my well-being, no flowers, not even a perfunctory. "How are you feeling?" Just pure, naked greed wrapped in designer clothing. "Daniel," I whispered, ignoring Ashley completely. "Son, I almost died." My heart. "Mom, stop being dramatic," Daniel interrupted, his voice cold and unfamiliar. "Ashley's right. You're clearly well enough to talk, which means you're well enough to handle a simple bank transfer. We have obligations. The mortgage company doesn't care that you decided to have a health scare right before the payment is due." A health scare. My cardiac event, my fractured hip, my near-death experience, reduced to an inconvenient health scare that interrupted their cash flow. "You think I chose this?" My voice cracked, tears streaming down my face. "You think I chose to spend Christmas alone in a hospital bed instead of with my family?" Ashley laughed. Actually laughed. "Family? Margaret, let's be honest here. You're not family. You're a bank account with delusions of grandeur. Real family would have made that transfer without needing to be asked. Real family wouldn't use a fake illness to manipulate us." The heart monitor began beeping erratically. Within seconds, Dr. Chen rushed in with 2 nurses. "What's going on here?" She looked from my distressed face to Ashley's angry one, immediately understanding the situation. "You 2 need to leave, now. This patient is in critical recovery and cannot handle stress. We're not leaving until she agrees to transfer the money," Ashley declared, crossing her arms like a petulant child. Dr. Chen's expression hardened. "Security is already on their way. You can leave voluntarily or be escorted out. Your choice." Daniel finally looked at me then, and for just a moment I saw a flicker of something. Shame? Regret? But Ashley grabbed his arm, hissing something in his ear, and his face hardened again. "When you stop being selfish and remember your obligations to us, you know how to reach us," he said, turning to leave. "We expect the full payment plus the Aspen money by New Year's, or we'll have to consider legal options." As they walked out, I heard Ashley's voice echoing down the hospital corridor. "I told you she'd milk this for attention. Classic narcissistic behavior. We should look into power of attorney before she squanders everything that's rightfully ours." Dr. Chen stood frozen for a moment, visibly shocked. "Margaret, I'm so sorry. Is that really your son?" I couldn't answer. My body began shaking uncontrollably, not from cold but from a grief so profound it felt like dying. The son I'd carried for 9 months, whose fever I'd sat up with countless nights, who I'd cheered at every baseball game and school play, he was gone, replaced by a stranger who saw me as nothing more than an obstacle to his inheritance. "We need to sedate her," I heard Dr. Chen say urgently. "Her heart rate is dangerously high." As the medication pulled me under, my last thought was of the Christmas stockings still hanging by my fireplace, waiting for a family that no longer existed. 3 weeks. 21 days in that sterile hospital room, fighting infection after infection that mysteriously kept appearing despite the antibiotics. My hip surgery, which should have been straightforward, turned into a nightmare of complications. The nurses whispered when they thought I was asleep, puzzled by my slow recovery, concerned about the unusual symptoms that didn't match typical post-surgical progression. On New Year's Eve, as fireworks exploded outside my hospital window celebrating fresh beginnings, I finally received discharge papers. "Doctor, Chen seemed reluctant to let me go, her eyes filled with worry as she reviewed my medications one last time. "Margaret, you're healing, but slower than we'd expect. These infections," she paused, choosing her words carefully. "It's unusual. Your immune system seems compromised, but we can't determine why. Please be careful at home. Do you have someone to help you?" I thought of Daniel and Ashley, who hadn't visited once since Christmas Eve, not a single call to check if I was alive. The only communication had been a certified letter from their lawyer. They were initiating proceedings to gain power of attorney over my finances due to my declining mental capacity. "I'll manage," I told Dr. Chen, gripping my new walker with hands that still trembled from weakness. The taxi ride home felt surreal. 3 weeks away, and the world had continued spinning without me. Christmas decorations were being taken down, regular life resuming for everyone else. When we turned onto my street in Westchester County, my heart lifted slightly at the sight of my colonial home, its white columns still decorated with the evergreen garland I'd hung in early December. But something was wrong. There were cars in my driveway, 3 of them, Daniel's BMW, Ashley's white Mercedes, and an unfamiliar Lincoln sedan. My front door stood wide open despite the freezing January air. "Ma'am, you want me to wait?" the taxi driver asked, noticing my distress. "Please," I whispered, my voice barely audible. I struggled up my front walkway with the walker, each step sending shooting pains through my healing hip. As I reached the porch, I heard voices from inside, laughter, casual conversation, the clink of glasses. They were having a party in my house. While I was hospitalized, when I finally made it through the doorway, the scene that greeted me stopped my heart. Ashley stood in my living room, wearing my mother's pearl necklace, the one from my jewelry box upstairs. She was showing it off to a woman I didn't recognize, explaining how it was a family heirloom that would finally be appreciated. My furniture had been rearranged. My husband Robert's leather armchair, his sanctuary where he'd read every evening, had been pushed into a corner, replaced by a modern monstrosity that clashed with everything. His collection of first edition books was gone from the built-in shelves, replaced by Ashley's trashy romance novels and self-help guides. "What?" I started, but my voice cracked. "What's happening here?" The room fell silent. Ashley turned slowly, her face morphing from surprise to annoyance to calculated coldness in seconds. Daniel emerged from the kitchen, my kitchen, holding a champagne flute filled with what looked like my anniversary Dom Perignon, the one Robert and I had been saving. "Mother," he said flatly, "not Mom, not with any warmth. You're earlier than expected. The hospital said you wouldn't be released until tomorrow. So you thought you'd move in while I was dying?" The words came out stronger than I felt. Ashley laughed, that cruel tinkling sound that made my skin crawl. "Dying? Please, Margaret. You're too dramatic. We're simply taking inventory of what will eventually be ours anyway. Estate planning, you understand. We need to know what we're working with." "Get out," I said, gripping my walker so tightly my knuckles went white. "Get out of my house, now." Actually, the stranger, a man in an expensive suit, stepped forward. "I'm afraid that's going to be complicated. I'm Harrison Blackwood, attorney at law. Mr. and Mrs. Sullivan have retained me to pursue conservatorship over your affairs. Given your recent hospitalization and apparent mental deterioration—" "Mental deterioration?" I shrieked, my voice breaking. "I had a heart episode and surgery. Because of them." I pointed a shaking finger at Daniel. "Because my son chose money over his mother." Daniel's face flushed red. "You see, Mr. Blackwood? She's delusional, blaming us for her health problems. Classic dementia behavior." The room started spinning. I reached for the wall, but my walker caught on the edge of the rug. A rug I didn't recognize. Another change they'd made. I went down hard, my barely healed hip exploding in agony as it hit the hardwood floor. The pain was excruciating, but nothing compared to the humiliation of lying there while they stood around me, not one person moving to help. "This is perfect," Ashley said coldly, actually stepping back as I struggled. "Mr. Blackwood, you're witnessing this. She can't even walk properly. She's a danger to herself." Through my tears and pain, I saw Daniel pull out his phone, but he wasn't calling for help. He was recording me, documenting my fall, my tears, my struggle to get up. "Please," I sobbed, the word torn from the deepest part of my soul. "Daniel, please. I'm your mother. I gave birth to you. I sat up with you through every fever, every nightmare. Remember when you were 7 and had pneumonia? I didn't leave your side for 5 days. Remember when your father died, how I held you while you cried? Please, son, please. For just a moment, I saw something flicker across his face, the ghost of the boy he used to be. But Ashley's hand landed on his shoulder, her manicured nails digging in possessively. Keep recording, she instructed. We need evidence of her instability. That's when I noticed the boxes stacked by the door. My china, my photo albums, Robert's watch collection. They were packing up my life, erasing my existence piece by piece. On the coffee table sat legal documents, their house deed, with sticky notes marking where I was supposed to sign, transferring ownership. You planned this? I gasped, the revelation hitting me as I finally managed to pull myself into a sitting position against the wall. The infections at the hospital, the complications. It was you. Ashley's smile was pure evil. Prove it. Though I will say, it's amazing what a little financial incentive can do for a nurse's cooperation. But again, that sounds like paranoid delusion, doesn't it, Mr. Blackwood? My body began shaking uncontrollably. Not from pain, but from the sheer magnitude of their betrayal. They hadn't just abandoned me, they had actively tried to harm me, to prolong my suffering, to weaken me for this exact moment. The security cameras, I whispered suddenly, remembering the system I'd installed last year. They recorded everything. Daniel's face went pale, but Ashley just laughed again. Oh, you mean the system we had disconnected 2 weeks ago? When we used your emergency key to check on the house while you were incapacitated? There's no footage, Margaret. No proof. Just a confused old woman making wild accusations against the family trying to help her. The taxi driver appeared in the doorway, concerned by how long I'd been inside. Ma'am, you okay? Should I call someone? Call 911, I managed to say. Please. Ashley stepped forward quickly. That won't be necessary. This is a family matter. My mother-in-law has dementia and gets confused. We're her caregivers. I'm not your mother-in-law, I screamed, finding strength in my rage. You're thieves, criminals. You tried to kill me. The taxi driver looked between us, uncertain. But he pulled out his phone anyway. I'm calling the police. Let them sort it out. As sirens wailed in the distance, Ashley leaned down close to my ear, her perfume, my perfume, stolen from my bedroom, making me gag. You should have just died in that hospital, Margaret. It would have been so much easier for everyone. But don't worry, we're not giving up. One way or another, everything you have will be ours. And there's nothing a pathetic, broken old woman can do to stop us. Daniel stood behind her, no longer recording, his face a mask I didn't recognize. My son was gone, replaced by a stranger who would watch his mother suffer on the floor of her own home for money. As the police arrived, I knew this was far from over. It was only the beginning of a war I never wanted to fight. The morning after Christmas Eve's hospital confrontation felt surreal. I'd been moved from the cardiac unit to a regular room, though my heart was still being monitored after the severe stress episode. Dr. Chen had sedated me for my own safety, but nightmares of Daniel's cold voice saying health scare kept jolting me awake. Carol arrived at 7 sharp with coffee and a grim expression. Margaret, I've been up all night. I need to show you something. She pulled out her laptop, her hands shaking slightly. Remember how you mentioned your neighbor, Mrs. Chen, had security cameras? I contacted her son. He's a tech specialist. He went through the footage from the past month. Carol, I don't think I can handle. You need to see this, she interrupted, unusual for her typically gentle demeanor. It changes everything. The first video was dated December 3rd, 3 weeks before my fall. Ashley and Daniel stood on my porch at 2 a.m. Ashley held something, a key, and was berating Daniel. Stop being pathetic. Her voice came through clearly on the audio. Your mother's worth $3.7 million total. The house alone is $1.8. All we need is 8 weeks maximum. But she's my mother, Daniel protested weakly. Ashley slapped him. Hard. The sound echoed in the quiet night. She's an investment, nothing more. Miranda's already on board at the hospital. If the old woman needs emergency care, everything's arranged. My blood went cold. They'd been planning my hospitalization before I even fell. Carol clicked to the next video, December 10th. This time, a woman in scrubs, presumably Miranda, arrived carrying medical supplies. The Rohypnol dosage needs to be precise, Miranda was explaining to Ashley. Too much and she'll notice. Too little and she won't be disoriented enough for the fall. Daniel's been putting it in her tea every Sunday dinner, Ashley replied casually. She's been getting wobblier. I rushed to the bathroom, barely making it before I was violently sick again. Those Sunday dinners? I'd cherished them, cooking Daniel's favorite pot roast, baking fresh bread, thinking we were bonding, all while he was poisoning me. When I returned, Carol had tears streaming down her face. There's more, Margaret. I'm so sorry. December 15th's footage showed them testing my Christmas lights, loosening specific bulbs to create a tripping hazard. They'd rehearsed it. Ashley pretending to be me, practicing the fall angle. Make sure she hits her hip, Ashley instructed. Broken hips in elderly women often lead to complications. If we're lucky, she won't survive the surgery. Stop, I whispered, but Carol shook her head. You need to see the last one, December 19th, the night before you fell. The timestamp showed 11:47 p.m. Daniel stood alone on my porch, his face illuminated by his phone screen. He was crying. I can't do this, he said to someone on the phone. She made me gingerbread cookies today. She wrapped my Christmas presents. She told me she loved me. Ashley's voice came through his speaker, ice cold. If you back out now, the Torinos will kill you by New Year's. Is that what you want? Your mother finding your body? Because I'll make sure she's the one who finds you. I'll dump you on her doorstep like garbage. Please, Ashley, there has to be another way. Do it tomorrow night, or I'll do it myself. And if I have to do it, she won't survive. At least your way, she has a chance. Daniel collapsed on my porch steps, sobbing, Dad, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. The video ended. We sat in silence for several minutes. Finally, I spoke. He knew it was wrong. He knew, and he did it anyway. The gambling debts, Carol started. No excuses, I shouted, then immediately regretted it as monitors started beeping. A nurse rushed in, checking my vitals. Mrs. Sullivan, you need to stay calm. Your heart. How can I stay calm? I asked desperately. My son rehearsed my murder. They practiced how I would fall. They poisoned my tea while I served them dinner made with love. Dr. Chen arrived, having heard the commotion. She watched part of the footage, her professional composure cracking. This is premeditated attempted murder. We need to contact the FBI immediately. The FBI? I asked weakly. This crosses state lines. Miranda's nursing license, Ashley's previous marriages in Nevada and Arizona that we've discovered, the Torino crime family connection. This is a federal case. As if summoned by the mention of their name, my phone rang. Unknown number. Against everyone's protests, I answered. Mrs. Sullivan? A gravelly voice, definitely not Daniel or Ashley. This is Vincent Torino. I understand your son owes us $300,000. He's not my son anymore, I said flatly. A pause. Interesting. Well, someone needs to pay. Family debts or family responsibilities. Then collect from his wife. They stole enough from me already. Ah, but here's the thing. Your boy told us you were good for it. Used your name as collateral. Showed us bank statements, property deeds, made promises. Promises he had no right to make. Nevertheless, promises made in our world have consequences. You have 1 week to pay or things get unpleasant. For everyone. The line went dead. Carol immediately called Agent Morrison back. We have a bigger problem. The mob's involved now. You've made it this far, go ahead and hit. Like to let me know you're still with me. You know, every share you make might help someone out there find a little hope. And before we continue, don't forget to subscribe because who knows, the next story might just touch your heart. Within 2 hours, my hospital room transformed into a federal command center. FBI agents interviewed me while others reviewed the footage. Agent Morrison, a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and graying hair, took charge. Mrs. Sullivan, we've been investigating the Torino family for years. If Daniel involved them, this goes beyond attempted murder. This is organized crime. I don't have $300,000 liquid, I said. Even if I did, I wouldn't pay my son's gambling debts. You won't have to. We're going to use this to take them all down. Ashley, the Torinos, the entire network. Network? Agent Morrison pulled up files on her tablet. Ashley Mitchell isn't just Daniel's wife. She's part of a larger operation that targets elderly parents through their adult children. We've identified similar cases in 8 states. You're not the first, Mrs. Sullivan, but you might be the first to survive long enough to testify. The words hit like physical blows. Across the country, other mothers and fathers had been betrayed, poisoned, murdered by their own children, manipulated by predators like Ashley. How many? I whispered. Confirmed? 17 deaths. Suspected? Maybe 40 more. 40 families destroyed. 40 Christmases ruined forever. Dr. Chen returned with more disturbing news. Margaret, we've analyzed your blood work from admission, the Rohypnol levels. You'd been drugged consistently for at least 6 weeks. It's a miracle you stayed conscious as long as you did. 6 weeks of Sunday dinners, 6 weeks of trusting my son while he slowly poisoned me. There's something else, Agent Morrison said carefully. We found Ashley's real name. She's not Ashley Mitchell. She's Ashley Blackstone, and she's done this before. 3 times. 3 dead parents, 3 imprisoned or dead spouses. Daniel's going to die too, isn't he? I asked, the realization hitting suddenly. Once she gets my money, he's next. Most likely. Her pattern is consistent. Find desperate adult children, marry them, eliminate the parents, then eliminate the spouse, clean sweep all the money. I looked at Carol, at Dr. Chen, at Agent Morrison. We have to warn him. Margaret, he tried to kill you, Carol protested, and she'll succeed in killing him. Whatever Daniel is, whatever he's become, he doesn't deserve to die for trusting the wrong person. Agent Morrison nodded slowly. We can use this. If Daniel knows he's next, he might cooperate fully. As they made plans, I lay back in my hospital bed, exhausted beyond measure. Outside my window, I could see families visiting their loved ones, carrying poinsettias and Christmas cards. Normal people living normal lives, not knowing that sometimes the greatest danger comes wrapped in familiar faces, served with Sunday dinner, sweetened with, "I love you, Mom." The footage had revealed the truth. My son was both victim and victimizer, trapped between his gambling debts and a master manipulator, but ultimately choosing money over mother. The complete picture was worse than I'd imagined, but also strangely clarifying. Now I knew exactly what I was fighting. The police officers stood in my living room, taking notes while I sat wrapped in a blanket on my violated sofa. Officer Patricia Martinez, a woman in her 40s with kind eyes but a no-nonsense demeanor, knelt beside me while her partner questioned Daniel and Ashley across the room. "Mrs. Sullivan, can you tell me exactly what happened when you arrived home?" Officer Martinez asked gently. Before I could answer, Ashley's voice cut through the air like a blade. "Officers, as we've explained, my mother-in-law suffers from severe dementia. We have documentation from her recent hospitalization showing cognitive decline. We're here as her caregivers, trying to help organize her affairs before she hurts herself further." "That's a lie," I protested, but my voice came out weak and shaky from exhaustion. "They haven't visited me once during my 3-week hospital stay. Not once." Daniel stepped forward, his face a mask of false concern. "See how confused she is? Mom, we visited you every day. Don't you remember? You kept asking us for Dad, even though he's been gone for 5 years. The cruelty of using Robert's death against me made bile rise in my throat. Officer Martinez looked between us, clearly trying to assess the situation. That's when the taxi driver who'd been standing in the doorway spoke up. "Excuse me, officers, but I've been driving Mrs. Sullivan for 15 years, ever since her husband passed. She's sharp as a tack. Always remembers my grandkids' names, asks about my wife's arthritis. And today, when I pulled up, she was shocked to see these cars here. That's not confusion, that's surprise. God bless Tony Castellano. I'd forgotten he was still there, this 70-year-old Italian man who'd driven me to countless doctor's appointments, grocery runs, and cemetery visits to Robert's grave." Ashley's face contorted with rage. "Who asked you? This is a family matter." "Family don't treat family like this," Tony shot back. "I watched her collapse on that floor while you people just stood there filming. What kind of son does that?" Officer Martinez's expression hardened as she turned to Daniel. "You filmed your mother falling?" For documentation, Harrison Blackwood, their lawyer, interjected smoothly. To show her declining physical capacity, It's standard in conservatorship cases. Standard? Tony's voice rose. She just got out of the hospital from hip surgery. She's using a walker. Of course she's gonna struggle. That's when my salvation walked through the door. Carol Bennett, my friend and former colleague from my days as a hospital administrator, stood there in her navy power suit, her silver hair pulled back in her signature bun. Behind her was a younger man carrying a briefcase. "Margaret, I came as soon as I got your message from the hospital." She surveyed the scene with the sharp eyes that had made her the best patient advocate in New York State. "Officers, I'm Carol Bennett, retired Chief Legal Counsel for Presbyterian Hospital. This is James Chen, Dr. Patricia Chen's son, and a practicing attorney specializing in elder law." James stepped forward, immediately professional. "Officers, I have here Mrs. Sullivan's medical records, which she authorized me to obtain. There's no indication of dementia or cognitive decline. What there is, however, is evidence of unusual infections and complications that the medical team found suspicious." Ashley grabbed Daniel's arm. "We should go. We don't have to stand here and listen to these lies." "Actually," Officer Martinez said, "you do. I need to see the documentation you claim to have about Mrs. Sullivan's mental state." Harrison Blackwood pulled out a folder, confident. "Right here. Sworn affidavits from concerned family members about erratic behavior." Carol laughed, actually laughed. "Harrison Blackwood? I remember you. Weren't you disbarred for 5 years for fabricating evidence in that elder abuse case? How interesting that you're practicing again, specializing in taking away elderly people's rights." The lawyer's face went ashen. "That's slander." "It's public record," James interrupted, pulling out his phone. "Here's the New York State Bar Association's disciplinary action report, reinstated just 6 months ago with conditions." The room fell silent except for the sound of my labored breathing. Every moment was a struggle to stay conscious, to fight through the pain and exhaustion. But I had to stay strong. I had to fight. "Mrs. Sullivan," Officer Martinez addressed me directly. "Do you want these people removed from your home?" "Yes," I whispered, then found my voice. "Yes, they broke in while I was hospitalized. They've stolen my jewelry, my husband's belongings. They're trying to steal my home." Daniel's mask finally cracked. "You can't kick us out. This house will be ours anyway. Do you know how much we've invested in our relationship with you? 3 years of Sunday dinners, pretending to care about your boring stories, listening to you cry about Dad." "Daniel," Ashley hissed, but it was too late. "Pretending?" I stared at my son, seeing him clearly for the first time. Every moment was pretense. "What did you expect?" He laughed bitterly. That I actually enjoyed spending time with a weepy old woman living in the past? The only reason we bothered was because of this. He gestured around the room. "This house, your savings, the inheritance. We earned it. We put in the time." Even the police officers looked shocked. Ashley tried to salvage the situation. "He's upset. He doesn't mean." "I mean every word," Daniel shouted. "Do you know what it's like having friends with trust funds while my mother sits on $3 million in assets? Watching her waste money on donations to hospitals and churches while we're struggling?" "Struggling?" Carol interjected. "Margaret told me she paid your mortgage for 2 years. $60,000 in mortgage payments alone." "That's nothing compared to what she has," Ashley snapped, her mask falling completely. "This house alone is worth $1.5 million. Her investment portfolio is another $1.5 million. And she was just going to what? Give it all to charity? We're her family. It belongs to us." James was recording everything on his phone now. "Officers, I believe we have sufficient evidence of attempted financial elder abuse, breaking and entering, and theft. Mrs. Sullivan's neighbors have security footage of them entering the house multiple times while she was hospitalized. My elderly neighbor, Mrs. Chen, no relation to my doctor, had installed cameras after a series of break-ins last year. I'd forgotten about them, but clearly, Carol hadn't." Officer Martinez stood up. "Mr. and Mrs. Sullivan, you need to leave the premises immediately. We'll be filing a report, and Mrs. Sullivan has the right to press charges." "This isn't over," Ashley snarled as Daniel grabbed her arm. "You can't live forever, Margaret. And when you die, alone and miserable, remember that you chose this. You chose money over family." "No," I said, finding strength I didn't know I had left. "You chose money over family. You chose greed over love. I chose survival over being your victim." As the police escorted them out, Daniel turned back one last time. For a brief moment, I saw my little boy in his eyes, lost, scared, confused. But then Ashley pulled him away, and the moment was gone. Carol helped me to Robert's chair, which James had moved back to its rightful place. "Margaret, honey, you're safe now, but this is far from over. They'll try again." I nodded, exhausted beyond words. Outside, I heard the sound of cars driving away. My son, leaving me again, but this time, I was the one who had chosen. Tony, who had witnessed everything, patted my shoulder gently. "You did good, Mrs. S. Your husband would be proud." As I sat there, surrounded by strangers who showed more care than my own blood, I realized the war had truly begun. But now I wasn't fighting alone. The next morning, Carol arrived at 7 sharp with coffee and a stack of documents that made my dining room table look like a war room. James Chen was already there, having spent the night reviewing security footage from my neighbor Mrs. Chen's cameras. What they found made my blood run cold. "Margaret, you need to see this," James said, turning his laptop toward me. On the screen, grainy but clear footage showed Ashley entering my house on December 23rd, while I was having my first surgery. She was carrying a small bag and went straight upstairs to my bedroom. "That's my jewelry box she's carrying out," I whispered, recognizing the mahogany case Robert had given me for our 20th anniversary. "There's more," Carol said grimly. "Look at this one from December 27th. This time, the footage showed a woman in scrubs entering my house with Daniel. She stayed for about an hour. When she left, she was carrying what looked like medical supplies. "Oh my God," I breathed, my hand flying to my mouth. "That must be the nurse, the one who kept giving me infections." James pulled up another document on his computer. "Her name is Miranda Blackstone. She's Ashley's cousin. Lost her license in Nevada 3 years ago for stealing medication, but somehow got reinstated in New York." The pieces were falling into place like a horrific puzzle. This wasn't just greed, it was attempted murder, orchestrated by my own son and his wife. "We need to go to the FBI," Carol said firmly. "This is beyond local police. This is conspiracy, attempted murder, interstate fraud." The doorbell interrupted her. Through the peephole, I saw a young woman with auburn hair and kind eyes, holding a badge. "Mrs. Sullivan? I'm Special Agent Sarah Morrison from the FBI's Elder Fraud Division. We received a call from Officer Martinez about your case." I opened the door, hope flickering in my chest for the first time in weeks. Agent Morrison sat down with us, her expression growing increasingly grim as we showed her the evidence. "Mrs. Sullivan, what you've uncovered here is part of a larger pattern we've been investigating. The Blackstone family, they're known for this. They target wealthy elderly individuals, usually widows or widowers, with strained family relationships." "There are others?" I asked, shocked. 3 confirmed cases in Nevada, 2 in Arizona. You're lucky to be alive." The victim in Tucson, an 80-year-old man named William Harper, died from complications during routine gallbladder surgery. His daughter-in-law was Miranda Blackstone's roommate in nursing school. My hands shook as I processed this information. "And my son? Is he part of this murder ring?" Agent Morrison's expression softened slightly. "We're still investigating his level of involvement. It's possible he was manipulated, but..." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "His financial records show large gambling debts, almost $200,000 to some very dangerous people. The timeline suggests he became desperate about 3 years ago, right when he started dating Ashley. 3 years ago, when Daniel had suddenly started visiting more often, bringing this wonderful new girlfriend who called me mom and complimented my cooking. It had all been a con from the very beginning." "I need to make some calls," Agent Morrison said, standing. "Mrs. Sullivan, we're going to post an agent outside your house for protection. This is now an active federal investigation." As she left, I slumped in my chair, overwhelmed. Carol squeezed my hand. "Margaret, you're doing amazing. You're so much stronger than you know." "I don't feel strong," I admitted, tears finally flowing. "I feel like a fool. How did I not see this? How did I raise a son capable of this?" "You didn't raise him to be this way," Carol said firmly. "Addiction changes people. Desperation changes people. And predators like Ashley, they're experts at finding vulnerable targets and turning them into weapons." That afternoon, my phone rang constantly. Unknown numbers, blocked numbers, even calls from Daniel's old college friends, all with the same message. I was a terrible mother destroying my son's life over money. Ashley had clearly launched a campaign to turn everyone against me. Then at 4 o'clock, a call came that changed everything. "Is this Margaret Sullivan?" The voice was young, female, trembling. "Yes, who is this?" "My name is Emma Chen, not related to your doctor. I was Daniel's girlfriend 5 years ago, before Ashley. I heard what's happening, and I need to tell you something." My heart stopped. "What do you mean? Can we meet?" "I'm scared to talk on the phone. They might be listening." An hour later, Emma sat in my living room, a petite woman around 33 with frightened eyes and shaking hands. Carol and James flanked me protectively as she spoke. "Daniel and I were engaged," she began, pulling out a small diamond ring from her purse. "We were happy, planning our wedding. Then he started gambling. Small amounts at first, but it escalated quickly. When I tried to help him get treatment, he met Ashley at the casino." She pulled out her phone, showing me photos of Daniel I'd never seen, laughing at a poker table, surrounded by rough-looking men, Ashley draped over him like a possession. "She targeted him," Emma continued. "Found out about his mother, you, and your financial situation. She convinced him I was holding him back, that with her, he could have everything. When I tried to warn him, she threatened me. Said her family had connections, that I'd disappear if I didn't leave New York." "Why didn't you go to the police?" James asked. Emma laughed bitterly. "With what proof? And against the Blackstones? I researched them after I left. They've been doing this for decades. Ashley alone has been married 3 times. Each husband's parent died mysteriously within a year of the wedding. If you find this part truly thought-provoking, go ahead and hit like to show your support. Do you feel the same way as the character in this story? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. 3 marriages, 3 dead parents, and my Daniel was supposed to be number 4. "There's more," Emma said, reaching into her bag. "I kept these because I thought someday they might matter." She pulled out a stack of emails printed from 5 years ago, messages between Ashley and someone named Vincent. "Vincent is Ashley's real husband," Emma explained. "They never divorced. This whole marriage to Daniel is fraudulent. They're running a long con. She marries the Marks, he handles the money laundering through his construction business in Vegas." I read the emails, each word a dagger. Found another one. "Mother worth $3 million plus house. Son's perfect, weak, desperate, massive debts. Give me 8 months maximum. The old lady's already got heart problems. Should be easy." Easy. My death was supposed to be easy. "Why are you telling me this now?" Carol asked suspiciously. Emma's eyes filled with tears. "Because I loved Daniel once. The real Daniel, before they destroyed him. And because..." She hesitated, then pulled out another photo. "This is my daughter, Lily. She's 4. Daniel doesn't know she exists." I stared at the photo of a beautiful little girl with Daniel's eyes and Emma's delicate features. My granddaughter. A granddaughter I never knew existed. "I found out I was pregnant after I left New York," Emma explained. "I couldn't tell Daniel, he was already under Ashley's control. But Lily deserves to know her grandmother, even if her father is." She couldn't finish. "Lost," I whispered. "Her father is lost." "Mrs. Sullivan," Emma said urgently. "Ashley called me yesterday. Threatened me again. Said if I didn't stay quiet, Lily and I would have an accident." That's when I knew I had to come forward. "If they're threatening us, you must be in real danger." Agent Morrison needed to know about this immediately. As I reached for my phone, it buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Stop now, or everyone you love dies. This is your only warning." Attached was a photo of Carol's house, taken that morning. The war had just escalated beyond anything I could have imagined. The threatening text changed everything. Within an hour, my house became a federal crime scene. Agent Morrison arrived with a full tactical team, their black SUVs lining my quiet Westchester street like a funeral procession. My elderly neighbors peered through curtains as agents and FBI windbreakers secured the perimeter. "Mrs. Sullivan, we need to move you to a safe house immediately," Agent Morrison said, her usual calm demeanor replaced with urgent efficiency. "This threat indicates they're escalating. We can't protect you adequately here." "What about Carol? Emma? My granddaughter?" The word still felt foreign on my tongue. Granddaughter. A beautiful little girl I'd never held, never sung to, never watched take her first steps. We're placing security on all of them. But right now, we need to move fast. Our tech team traced that photo. It was taken by a burner phone purchased at a convenience store in Queens. We have footage of the buyer. She showed me a grainy security image on her tablet. My heart stopped. It was Daniel, my own son, buying the phone that would be used to threaten the people trying to help me. No, I whispered, sinking into Robert's chair. He wouldn't. He couldn't. I'm sorry, Mrs. Sullivan, but this confirms his active participation. He's not just being manipulated anymore. He's complicit. The room spun. Every maternal instinct in my body screamed that this was wrong, that my baby boy couldn't be capable of this. But the evidence was overwhelming. The man threatening to kill people I cared about wore my son's face but housed a stranger's soul. James helped me pack essentials while Carol coordinated with the FBI. Emma had already been moved to protective custody with Lily. As I folded clothes into a suitcase, my hands mechanically performing the task, my mind drifted to happier times. Daniel's first Christmas, when he was 10 months old, grabbing at the tree ornaments with chubby fingers. His high school graduation, where he'd thanked me in his valedictorian speech for being the strongest woman I know. His father's funeral, where he'd held me as I sobbed, promising he'd take care of me. Lies. All lies. Or worse, maybe they weren't lies then. Maybe the gambling had destroyed the son I'd raised, leaving this hollow, dangerous shell. Margaret, Carol said softly, the car's ready. As we prepared to leave, my phone rang. Daniel's number. Agent Morrison held up her hand, connecting recording equipment before nodding for me to answer. Hello, Daniel. Mom. His voice was different. Slurred, desperate, unhinged. You've ruined everything. Everything. Do you understand what you've done? What I've done? Daniel, you tried to kill me. You and Ashley. Ashley's gone, he screamed, and I heard something crash in the background. She left. Took everything. Said the plan was ruined because of you, because you couldn't just die like you were supposed to. The casual cruelty of those words, die like you were supposed to, from the mouth of my only child made me physically ill. Daniel, turn yourself in. Please. It's not too late to... Too late? He laughed, a sound devoid of sanity. They're going to kill me, Mom. The people I owe money to. $300,000. I had it all figured out. Your death. The insurance, the house sale. 8 weeks, Ashley said. 8 weeks, and I'd be free. But you had to survive, didn't you? Had to fight back. Had to choose your precious money over your own son. I chose my life over your greed, I said, finding strength in my anger. You chose gambling over family. You chose a murderer over your mother. She wasn't supposed to actually hurt you, the admission burst out of him. Just make you sick enough to need care, to sign over power of attorney. But then she said it would be cleaner if you just stopped breathing. Said old people die all the time in hospitals. No one would question it. Agent Morrison was gesturing frantically, mouthing, "Keep him talking." The confession was being recorded, evidence that would seal his fate. Daniel, where are you? Does it matter? By tomorrow, I'll either be in prison or dead. The Torino family doesn't give extensions, and thanks to you, I've got nothing left to bargain with. Daniel, please. I wish you had died, he said flatly. I wish you had died instead of Dad. He would have understood. He would have helped me. You were only ever good for money anyway. Even when I was a kid, that's all you were, the one who paid for things. Dad was the one who loved me. The words shattered something inside me that I hadn't even known was still intact. Your father would be disgusted by what you've become. We'll never know, will we? Because he's dead. And soon I might be too. But at least I won't have to pretend to care about you anymore. Goodbye, Mother. Enjoy your money. I hope it keeps you warm at night. The line went dead. I stood there, phone in hand, unable to move or speak. My son had just confessed to conspiring to murder me, admitted he'd never loved me, wished me dead instead of his father. The little boy I'd carried for 9 months, whose first word was Mama, who'd made me Mother's Day cards with crayon hearts. He was gone, if he'd ever existed at all. We've got a location on the call, Agent Morrison said urgently. He's at a motel in Newark. We're moving in now. The next hours blurred together. The safe house was a nondescript apartment in White Plains, sterile and cold despite the agent's attempts to make it comfortable. Carol stayed with me, holding my hand as we watched the news on a tablet. Breaking news from Newark, where FBI agents have arrested a Westchester man in connection with an alleged murder-for-hire plot against his elderly mother. There was Daniel on the screen, disheveled and handcuffed, being led to a federal vehicle. He looked directly at the camera, and for a moment, I saw him clearly, not my son, but a desperate, broken stranger who'd gambled away his soul. The arrest had been dramatic. He'd barricaded himself in the motel room, threatening suicide before finally surrendering. They found evidence of the conspiracy everywhere. Emails with Ashley, texts with the corrupt nurse Miranda, financial records showing the movement of my stolen funds. Ashley Mitchell, also known as Ashley Blackstone, remains at large, the reporter continued. FBI sources say she may have fled to Mexico. Her cousin, Miranda Blackstone, was arrested at JFK Airport attempting to board a flight to Costa Rica. "It's over," Carol said gently. "You're safe now." But was I? My son was in federal custody facing conspiracy to commit murder charges. My granddaughter, who I just learned existed, was in protective custody with her terrified mother. My home was a crime scene. My money, what hadn't been stolen, was frozen as evidence. And somewhere out there, Ashley was free, probably planning her next victim. "There's something else," Agent Morrison said, entering the room with a grim expression. "We've been going through Ashley's history more thoroughly. Margaret, she's done this 4 times before. You would have been number 5. 4 other families destroyed. 4 other mothers or fathers dead. And my Daniel had knowingly signed up to make me number 5. The prosecutor wants to meet with you tomorrow," Agent Morrison continued. "Daniel's lawyer is already talking about a plea deal. He'll testify against Ashley and the whole Blackstone network in exchange for a reduced sentence." "How reduced?" I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted to know. 20 years instead of life. With good behavior, he could be out in 15. 15 years. My son would be 53 when he got out. I would be 87 if I lived that long. Would he try again? Would I spend my remaining years looking over my shoulder, wondering if my own child was plotting my death? "There's one more thing," Agent Morrison said, pulling out a document. "Emma Chen wants to know if you'd like to meet Lily, your granddaughter. She says the little girl has been asking about her grandma Margaret ever since Emma told her you existed." Through all the pain, betrayal, and fear, a tiny spark of hope flickered. A granddaughter. A chance to be the grandmother I'd dreamed of being, even if her father was a monster. "Yes," I whispered. "Yes, I want to meet her. Perhaps something good could still rise from these ashes." The federal courthouse in Lower Manhattan loomed before me like a gray monument to justice. 3 days had passed since Daniel's arrest, and now I sat in a cold conference room facing Assistant U.S. Attorney Jennifer Walsh, a woman whose sharp eyes missed nothing. Carol sat beside me, my silent pillar of strength, while Agent Morrison stood by the window. "Mrs. Sullivan, your son wants to see you," Attorney Walsh said, her voice carefully neutral. "Before we proceed with the plea negotiations, he's requested a meeting. You're under no obligation to agree." My hands trembled as I clutched my purse, the same purse that held a photo of Daniel at age 5, grinning with his first lost tooth. How did that innocent child become the man sitting in a federal detention center? "What does he want?" I asked, though my voice barely rose above a whisper. "He says he wants to apologize, to explain. His lawyer claims it might help with his cooperation if he can find some closure." Closure. As if attempting to murder your mother was something you could simply close like a chapter in a book. "I'll see him," I heard myself say. Carol squeezed my hand in warning, but I continued. "I need to look him in the eyes one more time. I need to understand how my son became a monster." An hour later, I sat in a stark visitation room, bulletproof glass between me and the man who used to be my child. Daniel looked haggard, unshaven, his expensive shirt replaced with orange jail clothes, his eyes hollow with a desperation I'd never seen before. He picked up the phone on his side, and I did the same on mine. "Mom," his voice cracked on the word. "Don't," I said sharply. "You lost the right to call me that when you plotted my death." He flinched as if I'd slapped him. "I deserve that. I deserve worse. I needed to tell you something before it all comes out in court." "Tell me what?" That you're sorry? That you didn't mean it? That Ashley made you do it? My voice rose with each question. Which lie did you prepare for today, Daniel? The truth, he said, and for the first time since this nightmare began, he looked me directly in the eyes. You want to know how I became this? It started with Dad. My blood turned cold. Don't you dare blame Robert. I'm not blaming him. I'm explaining. When Dad died, you fell apart. Remember? For 6 months, you could barely function. I was 33, and suddenly I had to handle everything. The funeral, the estate, your medications, the bills, and I started feeling powerful, important, like I mattered. I remembered those dark months after Robert's death, the grief so consuming I could barely breathe. Daniel had indeed stepped up, handled everything with a competence that had made me proud even through my sorrow. Then you got better, he continued, his voice bitter. Went back to being the capable Margaret Sullivan who didn't need anyone, and I went back to being nothing. Just another mediocre lawyer in a city full of them. So I started gambling to feel that rush again, that sense of control. So, you blame me for your gambling addiction? I asked incredulously. No, I chose that. Every bet, every card, every dice roll, that was me. But when I met Ashley, she saw something in me nobody else did. She made me feel like I could be more than Robert Sullivan's disappointing son. By planning to kill me? By promising me freedom, he exploded, then caught himself. She said you were holding me back. That your money was my birthright. That waiting for it was keeping me from my potential. She made it sound so logical. So reasonable. Like we were just accelerating the inevitable being my death. Everyone dies, Mom. His casual tone chilled me. Ashley said we were just helping nature along, that at your age, with your heart condition, it was merciful. You'd go peacefully in your sleep instead of suffering a long decline. Merciful? I stood up, my rage giving me strength. You call 21 days of infections and pain merciful? You call the terror I felt merciful? That wasn't supposed to happen. He slammed his hand against the glass. Miranda went too far. Ashley promised it would be quick, painless. Just an allergic reaction to medication. They'd try to save you, but... He trailed off, perhaps finally hearing how monstrous he sounded. And my granddaughter? I asked quietly. Were you ever going to tell me about Lily? His face crumbled. You know about Lily? Emma came forward. She's been hiding for 5 years because of your wife's threats. Your daughter has been growing up without a father because you chose Ashley over them. I didn't know Emma was pregnant, he protested. She left before. If I'd known. You would have what? Chosen your child over your gambling debts? Chosen love over money? I laughed bitterly. You couldn't even choose your mother's life over money. The people I owe will kill me, he said desperately. The Torino family doesn't forgive debts. Even in here, I'm not safe. They have people everywhere. I'll be dead within a month, unless I make a deal with the feds. And you want my blessing? My forgiveness? I want you to know that somewhere, buried under all this. He gestured at himself. The son you raised still exists. Or existed. Before I destroyed him with my choices. That son died the moment you decided my life was worth less than your debts, I said, standing to leave. If this part really struck a chord with you, tap that like button to let me know you're with me. Do you see yourself in the character's journey? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I can't wait to hear your take. Wait, he pressed against the glass. There's more. About Ashley. Things the FBI doesn't know yet. I paused at the door. What things? She's killed before. Not just the elderly parents. In Vegas 8 years ago, her first husband made it look like a car accident. She bragged about it one night when she was drunk, said he was her practice run. Tell the FBI, I said coldly. I will. I'm telling them everything. But Mom, Margaret, you need to know she's not done with you. She blames you for ruining her biggest score. The Blackstone family has connections everywhere. Even if they catch her, others will come. Is that a threat? It's a warning. From whatever part of me still. He paused, searching for words. Still remembers loving you. Before the gambling. Before Ashley. Before I became this thing I don't recognize. I turned back to look at him one last time. This broken, desperate man wearing my son's face. Daniel, do you want to know the cruelest part of all this? He nodded, tears streaming down his face. If you had just asked for help with your gambling debts, I would have paid them, every penny. I would have gotten you treatment, supported you through recovery. I would have done anything to save my son. But you never asked. You went straight to murder. His face contorted with a pain that looked almost physical. I know, God, I know, and I'll live with that for whatever time I have left. However long that is, I said quietly, it won't be long enough to undo what you've done. I left him there, slumped against the glass, sobbing. The sound followed me down the corridor, but I didn't look back. The son I'd loved was dead. This stranger in orange was just the shell he'd left behind. Outside the detention center, Carol waited with Agent Morrison and someone new, a U.S. Marshal named David Park. Mrs. Sullivan, we've had a development, Agent Morrison said urgently. Ashley's been spotted in Montreal. Canadian authorities are moving in, but she hesitated. But what? She made a call we intercepted. She's put a bounty on you. $50,000 to anyone who completes what she started. The ground seemed to shift beneath my feet. It wasn't over. It might never be over. We're placing you in witness protection, Marshal Park said firmly. New identity, new location, until this entire network is dismantled. As we drove away from the detention center, I gazed at the Manhattan skyline, knowing I might never see it again. My old life, Margaret Sullivan, mother, widow, victim, was ending. But perhaps that was for the best. That woman had been too trusting, too blind to the evil that could wear familiar faces. The woman I was becoming would be different. Stronger, safer, and alive. The witness protection safe house in Buffalo felt like a prison with better furniture. 2 weeks had passed since my world imploded, and I sat watching the news coverage of Daniel's case on a laptop, my appearance already altered, hair dyed brown, thick-rimmed glasses, clothes that Margaret Sullivan would never wear. I was becoming Mary Peterson, retired librarian from Ohio. Margaret, you need to see this, Carol said, rushing into the living room. She'd refused to leave my side, even entering witness protection with me. Daniel's lawyer just released a statement. On the screen, Daniel's attorney, Marcus Webb, stood before a cluster of microphones. My client wishes to make a full confession and has provided evidence that will expose a criminal network spanning 12 states. In exchange for his cooperation, we're seeking a reduced sentence and protective custody. 12 states? I whispered. How big is this thing? Agent Morrison, who was coordinating my protection, pulled up a secure video link. Mrs. Sullivan, Daniel's providing everything. Bank records, recorded conversations, even video evidence Ashley didn't know he had. But there's something else. Someone unexpected wants to testify on your behalf. The screen flickered, and a face appeared that made my heart stop. Richard Sterling, Ashley's supposed father, though we now knew he was actually her criminal partner. He was in federal custody, his expensive suit replaced with jail clothes, his silver hair no longer perfectly styled. Mrs. Sullivan, he began, his voice different from the smooth conman who'd entered my home. I know I'm the last person you want to hear from, but I have information you need. This is a trick, I said immediately. Another manipulation. Ashley killed my daughter, he said flatly, and the room went silent. What? Agent Morrison leaned forward. Mr. Sterling, are you saying... My real daughter, Jennifer. She was 23, fresh out of nursing school. Ashley befriended her, brought her into our operations. But Jennifer grew a conscience when she realized we were actually killing people, not just scamming them. She was going to testify against us. His voice cracked, real emotion breaking through. Ashley made it look like an overdose. My own daughter. That's when I realized the monster I'd created, but I was in too deep. The Blackstone Network doesn't let people leave alive. Why should we believe you? I asked, finding my voice. Because I have proof. He held up a flash drive to the camera. Every murder Ashley committed, every elderly victim, every family member who got in the way, including recordings of her discussing your case. She never knew I was documenting everything as insurance. The implications were staggering. This wasn't just about me anymore. This was about dozens of victims, maybe hundreds. Play the recording about Mrs. Sullivan, Agent Morrison instructed. Richard inserted the drive into a laptop off-screen. Ashley's voice filled the room, cold and calculating. The Sullivan woman is perfect. 72, recent widow, heart condition, and a pathetic excuse for a son with $300,000 in gambling debts. He's so desperate he'd sell her to us gift-wrapped if he could. The beautiful part? She actually loves the worthless fool. She'll never see it coming. Then Daniel's voice, uncertain. But what if something goes wrong? What if she survives? Ashley's laugh was chilling. Then we accelerate. Miranda increases the infections. Or there's an accident. Elderly women fall downstairs all the time. The day after Christmas would be poetic. Grieving mother, alone and depressed, takes a tumble. Nobody would question it. Turn it off, I gasped, running to the bathroom where I was violently sick. They'd planned everything, even how to stage my accidental death if the medical murder failed. When I returned, Richard was still on screen. There's more, Mrs. Sullivan, about your son. I don't want to hear. He recorded her too, Richard interrupted, without her knowing. He was building his own insurance file. He knew she'd eventually turn on him like she did everyone else. Another recording played. This time Daniel's voice was first. Once it's done, once we have the money, we're partners, right? Equal split? Ashley's response was venomous. Oh, Danny, you really think you're walking away from this? A gambling addict who conspired to kill his own mother? You're the perfect fall guy. Once Margaret's gone and the estate clears, you'll have a tragic guilt-driven suicide, or maybe another gambling debt collection gone wrong. Either way, I get everything and you get a coffin. The recording continued with Daniel's panicked voice. You said we were in this together. We are, baby, right until we're not. Your mother's will leaves everything to you. Your will, the one you signed last month thinking it was loan paperwork, leaves everything to your beloved wife. See how that works? You planned to kill us both, I breathed, the full horror hitting me. She was going to murder both Daniel and me. Richard nodded on screen. It's her pattern. She finds desperate family members, uses them to access elderly victims, then eliminates everyone. Clean sweep, no witnesses, all the money. Why are you telling us this now? Agent Morrison asked suspiciously. Because I'm already dead, Richard said simply. The moment Ashley finds out I'm talking, the Blackstone Network will have me killed in prison, probably within days. This is my confession, my attempt at. I don't know. Redemption? Justice for Jennifer? I helped create this monster. The least I can do is help destroy it. We can protect you, Agent Morrison offered. Richard laughed bitterly. No, you can't. They have people everywhere. Guards, inmates, even federal marshals. I've got maybe 72 hours before someone shanks me in the shower or poisons my food, but that's 72 hours to give you everything. Over the next hour, Richard laid out the entire network. Names, dates, bank accounts in the Caymans, contact information for corrupt officials, even the location of bodies that were never found. It was a criminal empire built on the deaths of the elderly, the vulnerable, the trusting. There's a list, he said finally. Ashley's next targets. She had backup plans in case the Sullivan job failed. 3 women in Florida, 2 in Arizona, 1 in Maine. All widows, all with weak family connections, all worth over $2 million. We'll warn them immediately, Agent Morrison said, already typing. There's one more thing, Richard said, looking directly at me through the camera. Your son, he did love you once. I saw it in the early recordings, before Ashley got her hooks in completely. He fought her at first, said he couldn't hurt you. She spent 6 months breaking him down, threatening him, drugging him sometimes to make him more compliant. It doesn't excuse what he did, but maybe it helps to know he wasn't always acting of his own free will. It doesn't help, I said coldly, though my heart cracked slightly. He made his choice. Richard nodded. Fair enough. Agent Morrison, I've uploaded everything to your secure server. 23 gigabytes of evidence. Enough to destroy the entire Blackstone network if you move fast. They'll know I talked within hours. Mr. Sterling, I said suddenly, your daughter Jennifer. Did she have any last words? Anything you want shared? His composure finally broke completely. She said she was sorry. That she never meant for people to die. She wanted to be a real nurse. To help people. Ashley took that dream and twisted it into something evil. The parallel to Daniel was too painful to acknowledge. "Thank you for your cooperation, Mr. Sterling," Agent Morrison said formally. "We'll begin raids immediately." "Don't thank me," Richard replied. "Just stop them. Stop them all." The screen went dark. 3 days later, the news broke. Federal raids across 12 states dismantle elderly fraud murder ring, 43 arrests. Ashley Blackstone captured in Montreal. But the same day, another headline. Federal witness Richard Sterling found dead in protective custody. Apparent suicide. We all knew it wasn't suicide. The Blackstone network's reach was longer than even he had imagined. That night, I sat with Carol watching the coverage, feeling hollow despite the victory. Justice was being served, but at such a terrible cost. "Do you think Daniel knew?" Carol asked quietly. "About Ashley planning to kill him too?" "I think he suspected," I admitted. "That's why he made his own recordings. But he was so desperate, so lost in his addiction, he convinced himself he could outsmart her." My phone, the secure one provided by the marshals, rang. It was Emma. "Margaret, I saw the news. Are you safe?" "For now. How's Lily?" "She's asking about you. She drew you a picture, a grandmother she's never met standing next to a Christmas tree. She says that's where grandmas belong." The tears I'd been holding back finally fell. Somewhere out there was a little girl who needed a grandmother, whose father was a monster but who still deserved love. "When this is over," I promised, "when it's safe, I want to be in her life." "She'd like that," Emma said softly. "So would I." As I hung up, I realized that despite everything, the betrayal, the attempts on my life, the complete destruction of my family, I still had something to live for. A granddaughter who drew pictures of grandmothers by Christmas trees. Hope in the midst of ashes. The secure facility's medical examination room felt colder than the Buffalo winter outside. Dr. Patricia Chen, who had treated me during my initial hospitalization, sat across from me with a stack of medical files and a grim expression. The FBI had flown her in specifically to review my case after Richard Sterling's evidence revealed the true extent of the medical conspiracy. "Margaret, what I'm about to show you is disturbing," Dr. Chen warned, her hands resting on the sealed files. "We've completed a full investigation of your 3-week hospitalization. What Miranda Blackstone did to you, it's one of the worst cases of medical abuse I've seen in 30 years of practice." Carol gripped my hand as Dr. Chen opened the first file. "Your initial hip fracture was legitimate. The fall caused a clean break that should have healed within a week with proper care. But Miranda deliberately contaminated your IV line with measured doses of E. coli bacteria. Not enough to kill you immediately, but sufficient to cause recurring infections that kept you weak and hospitalized." My stomach churned. She was poisoning me? Systematically. Look at these charts. Dr. Chen spread out several graphs showing my white blood cell counts, infection markers, and medication logs. Every time you started to improve, there's a corresponding entry in Miranda's shift log. She was timing the infections precisely, keeping you sick but not quite dying yet. "The goal was to weaken me for the final dose," I said, understanding with horrible clarity. "Exactly. We found vials in her locker with concentrated bacterial cultures and insulin. The plan was to induce a diabetic coma that would look like a natural complication from the infections. Your heart episode actually saved your life. It brought in additional doctors who disrupted their timeline." Agent Morrison entered with a tablet. "Mrs. Sullivan, we've broken the encryption on Ashley's phone. There are text messages between her and Miranda during your hospitalization." I read the messages, each one a dagger. December 24th, 3:47 a.m., Miranda. Increased dose administered. Fever spiking. Ashley. Perfect. Keep her unstable through Christmas. December 26th, 11:23 p.m., Ashley. Daniel's getting nervous. How much longer? Miranda. 2 more days. 3 maximum. Her body's shutting down. December 27th, 6:15 p.m., Miranda. Another doctor's asking questions. Should I proceed? Ashley. Finish it tonight. Make it look natural. That's the night my heart gave out, I whispered. If I hadn't had that episode, if the cardiac team hadn't intervened. You would have died by morning, Dr. Chen confirmed. Your body's extreme stress response actually triggered a survival mechanism. The cardiac arrhythmia brought in specialists who weren't part of their plan. There's more, Agent Morrison said grimly. We found similar patterns at 5 other hospitals where Miranda worked. 17 elderly patients died under her care with similar symptoms. We're exhuming bodies for testing. 17 people. 17 families who thought their loved ones died naturally, never knowing they were murdered for money. Why didn't anyone notice? Carol asked, horrified. Miranda was clever, Dr. Chen explained. She targeted patients who were already vulnerable, recent surgeries, pre-existing conditions, no close family monitoring their care. She knew exactly how to make murder look like medical complications. My phone rang, the secure line. It was the federal prosecutor, Jennifer Walsh. Mrs. Sullivan, I have an update. Ashley Blackstone was formally charged this morning with 43 counts of murder, attempted murder, and conspiracy. She's being held without bail, but there's been a development with Daniel. My chest tightened. What kind of development? He's in the hospital. Attempted suicide in his cell. He's stable but on psychiatric hold. The room spun. Despite everything, knowing my son had tried to kill himself hit me like a physical blow. The mother in me, buried under layers of betrayal and pain, stirred with unwanted concern. He left a note, Attorney Walsh continued. He wants you to have it. Should I send it over? Yes, I said, though Carol shook her head in warning. An hour later, I held Daniel's handwritten letter with trembling hands. Mom, I know I have no right to call you that anymore, but I don't know what else to write. The recordings Ashley made, the ones where she talked about killing me too, they broke something in me. Not because I was going to die, but because I finally understood what you felt. The betrayal, the fear, the realization that someone you loved was planning your death. I can't live with what I've become. Every time I close my eyes, I see you in that hospital bed, fighting infections I helped cause. I see Dad looking at me with disgust. I see the son I used to be, before the gambling, before Ashley, before I became a monster. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I know that's impossible. I'm not even asking for understanding. I just needed you to know that somewhere, buried under all the greed and addiction and manipulation, there was a moment where I remembered loving you. Really loving you. Not your money. You. It was Christmas Eve, when I saw you in the hospital. For just a second, when the machines were beeping and you looked so small and fragile, I wanted to call it all off. I wanted to grab your hand and beg for forgiveness. But Ashley was there, always watching, and I was too much of a coward. I know you have a granddaughter now, Emma told the FBI about Lily. Please love her the way you loved me before I destroyed everything. She's innocent in all of this. Don't let my sins poison her life. I'm sorry, Mom. Sorry for the pain, the fear, the betrayal. Sorry for becoming everything you raised me not to be. Sorry for choosing money over the mother who would have died for me, and almost did because of me. Your son, though I don't deserve the title, Daniel. The letter fell from my numb fingers. Carol picked it up, read it quickly, then pulled me into her arms as I sobbed, not just for the son I'd lost, but for the man he'd chosen to become and now couldn't live with being. He's still alive, Agent Morrison reminded me gently. He's getting psychiatric help. This could be his rock bottom, the point where real change begins. But I knew better. Some betrayals cut too deep. Some bridges, once burned, could never be rebuilt. Daniel would have to find his own path to redemption, if one existed. I couldn't be part of that journey. The mother he'd tried to murder was gone, replaced by a survivor who knew that love without boundaries could be deadly. Dr. Chen cleared her throat. Margaret, there's one more thing. Your recent blood work shows trace amounts of a drug called rohypnol, the date rape drug. Small doses administered over time, probably in food or drinks Daniel brought you before your hospitalization. The final piece clicked into place. The fatigue I'd felt in the weeks before my fall, the confusion, the memory gaps, they'd been drugging me even before the hospital, making me more vulnerable, more likely to fall. The fall down the stairs wasn't an accident, I said with sudden clarity. Daniel called that night, asked me to come downstairs for something urgent. I was dizzy from the drugs and the Christmas lights. Were deliberately loosened, Agent Morrison confirmed. We found tool marks on the fixture. They created the perfect conditions for an accident. Every moment of the past 3 months had been orchestrated, planned, designed to kill me while looking natural. My son hadn't just betrayed me, he'd been an active participant in an elaborate murder plot that started long before that horrible Christmas call. "I want to see Lily," I said suddenly. "My granddaughter. If he doesn't survive this, she'll need family. Real family who won't treat her like a commodity." "We can arrange a secure meeting," Agent Morrison said. "Emma's been asking about you too. She wants Lily to know her grandmother." As I sat in that cold room, surrounded by evidence of my son's betrayal and the network that had nearly killed me, I made a decision. I would not let them win. Not Ashley, not the Blackstone network, not even the broken part of Daniel that had chosen greed over love. I would survive, I would heal, and I would ensure my granddaughter grew up knowing that real love, the kind that doesn't demand payment, still existed in this world, even if I had to rebuild my entire life to prove it. The secure meeting location was a small park in Rochester, 2 hours from Buffalo. Emma had agreed to bring Lily, with FBI agents stationed discreetly around the perimeter. As I waited on a bench near the playground, my hands trembled not from fear but from anticipation. I was about to meet my granddaughter, a piece of my future that Ashley and Daniel hadn't managed to destroy. I saw them before they saw me. Emma, still beautiful despite the stress of recent years, held the hand of a little girl with Daniel's dark hair and Emma's delicate features. Lily wore a purple winter coat with mittens attached by strings, just like the ones Daniel used to wear. She was skipping slightly, chattering about something that made Emma smile. When Emma spotted me, she knelt beside Lily, pointing in my direction. The little girl looked at me with curious eyes. Daniel's eyes, but innocent, untainted by greed or betrayal. "Lily," Emma said softly, "this is your Grandma Margaret we talked about." The child studied me for a moment, then broke free from Emma's hand and ran toward me with the fearless trust only children possess. "Grandma, Mommy said you were sick, but you're better now." As she threw her small arms around my neck, smelling of cherry shampoo and graham crackers, I broke down completely. This tiny person, this innocent soul, was hugging me like I was precious to her. After months of betrayal and attempted murder, pure love from a 4-year-old felt like absolution. "Hello, sweetheart. I managed through my tears. I'm so happy to finally meet you." Lily pulled back, studying my face with concern. "Why are you crying? Did you get a boo-boo?" "Happy tears," I explained, wiping my eyes. Sometimes grown-ups cry when they're very, very happy. She seemed to accept this logic and climbed onto the bench beside me, pulling something from her little backpack. "I made this for you." It was the drawing Emma had mentioned, a crude but heartfelt picture of 2 figures beside a Christmas tree. One tall labeled Grandma in shaky letters, one small labeled M.E., both with enormous smiles. "It's beautiful," I said, meaning it more than any compliment I'd ever given. "This is the best present anyone's ever given me." Emma sat on Lily's other side, watching us carefully. "Lily's been asking about you ever since I told her she had a grandmother. She wanted to know why you couldn't come to Christmas." "Because bad people made Grandma sick," Lily said matter-of-factly. "But the police catch them, and now Grandma is safe." The simplified version Emma had told her was probably best. A 4-year-old didn't need to know that one of those bad people was her father. "Grandma," Lily said suddenly, "do you have cookies at your house?" "Real grandmas always have cookies." I laughed, my first genuine laugh in months. "I don't have my house right now, sweetheart. But when I do, I promise to always have cookies." "What kind do you like?" "Chocolate chip, and snickerdoodles, and the ones with sprinkles," she bounced excitedly. "Mommy doesn't make cookies much. She says the oven is temperamental." "Temperamental," Emma corrected with a smile. "And it really is. Things older than I am." We spent the next hour in that park, Lily showing me everything, how high she could swing, how fast she could go down the slide, the secret hiding spot under the climbing structure where she kept special rocks. Every moment was a gift, a glimpse of the grandmother I could have been if Daniel hadn't chosen his dark path. As Lily played, Emma and I sat watching, finally able to talk. "How much does she know?" I asked quietly. "Almost nothing. Just that her father made bad choices and can't be with us. She's asked a few times, but she's young enough that she accepts simple answers. And when she's older," Emma sighed, "I'll tell her the truth. Gradually. Age appropriately. She deserves to know where she came from. but she also deserves a childhood free from that burden. You're a wonderful mother, I said sincerely, despite everything you've been through. I had to be. Lily didn't ask for any of this. Emma paused, watching her daughter attempt to climb the monkey bars. Margaret, there's something you should know. Daniel. He set aside something. Before Ashley completely took over, my body tensed. What do you mean? A trust fund. For Lily. $50,000 in an account Ashley didn't know about. He created it right after he found out about my pregnancy, before I left. The FBI found it during their investigation. It's been frozen as part of the criminal proceedings, but the prosecutor says it will likely be released to Lily since it predates the conspiracy. My son had known. Somehow he'd known about his daughter and had tried to provide for her, even while planning my murder. The contradiction was almost too much to process. He wasn't always a monster, Emma said softly. The Daniel I fell in love with was kind, funny, ambitious in good ways. The gambling changed him. Then Ashley finished what the addiction started. Don't, I said sharply. Don't make excuses for him. He tried to kill me. He drugged me, arranged my fall, let that nurse torture me with infections. Whatever good was in him once, he murdered it himself. Emma nodded. You're right. I'm sorry. Sometimes I look at Lily and see glimpses of the man he could have been. Lily ran back to us, breathless and rosy-cheeked. Grandma, can you push me on the swings? Mommy doesn't push high enough. For the next 20 minutes, I pushed my granddaughter on the swings, listening to her squeal with delight, feeling something dead inside me slowly come back to life. This little girl was my second chance. Not to replace the son I'd lost, but to love someone without conditions, without fear of betrayal. As the sun began to set, Agent Morrison signaled it was time to go. The security risk increased after dark. Do you have to leave? Lily asked, her lower lip trembling. We just found you. I knelt down to her level. I have to go for now, sweetheart, but this isn't goodbye. I promise we'll see each other again soon. Pinky promise? She held out her tiny finger. Pinky promise, I said, linking my finger with hers. As Emma buckled Lily into her car seat, the little girl pressed her drawing into my hands again. Keep this so you don't forget me. I could never forget you, I promised, clutching the paper like a lifeline. Emma hugged me quickly. We're moving next month, she whispered. The FBI is helping us relocate for safety. New names, new life. But I want you in it, if you're willing. Always, I said, without hesitation. Whatever it takes. As their car drove away, Lily waving frantically from the back window, I stood in that empty park feeling something I hadn't experienced since before Robert died. Hope for the future. Carol appeared beside me. She's beautiful, Margaret, and clearly already loves you. She doesn't know what her father did, I said quietly. No, but she knows what you are, her grandmother who loves her. That's all that matters right now. That night, back in the safe house, I carefully pinned Lily's drawing to the wall beside my bed, a grandmother and granddaughter beside a Christmas tree. Such a simple image, but it represented everything Ashley and Daniel had tried to steal from me. Family, love, a future worth living for. My phone buzzed with a message from Attorney Walsh. Daniel's condition upgraded to stable. He's cooperating fully. Ashley's network continues to collapse. You're safe. Safe. But more than that, I had something to live for beyond mere survival. A little girl who called me Grandma and wanted me to push her high on the swings. It was enough. More than enough. It was everything. 6 weeks had passed since meeting Lily. The FBI had dismantled most of the Blackstone network, 57 arrests across 14 states, with Ashley Blackstone facing life without parole. Daniel remained in federal custody, now in psychiatric treatment while awaiting sentencing. The immediate danger had passed, which meant it was time to face something I'd been dreading, returning to my house in Westchester. Agent Morrison drove me there on a cold February morning. The Christmas decorations that had witnessed my nightmare were long gone, replaced by the stark bareness of winter. My colonial home looked exactly the same from the outside, but I knew everything inside had been violated, touched, contaminated by their presence. We've had a cleaning crew go through everything, Agent Morrison said gently, returned all your belongings to their original places. But if it's too much... No, I said firmly. This is my home. Robert and I built our life here. I won't let them steal that too. The key felt heavy in my hand as I approached the front door. The last time I'd used it, I'd been arriving from the hospital, discovering Ashley wearing my mother's pearls. Now, the house stood empty, waiting. Inside, everything appeared normal, yet nothing felt right. The furniture was correctly placed, but I could tell it had been moved. The walls held the same pictures, but I knew Ashley's hands had touched them. My kitchen, once my sanctuary, felt foreign. If this moment truly hit home for you, don't forget to tap that like button. It tells me you're right here with me. Can you see a bit of yourself in this story? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear what part spoke to you most. Carol arrived an hour later with supplies and moral support. "We'll reclaim it together," she said. "Make it yours again." We started in the kitchen, where I'd prepared that final Christmas dinner. I threw away every dish, every utensil, every pot and pan. It was wasteful, perhaps irrational, but I couldn't bear the thought of eating from plates they'd used while planning my death. "Margaret," Carol said suddenly from the living room, "you need to see this." Behind Robert's bookshelf, which had been moved during the FBI search, was a small safe I'd never seen before. It was built into the wall, painted to match, virtually invisible unless you knew where to look. "Did Robert ever mention this?" Carol asked. "Never." I stared at the safe, my heart racing. How did we not know this was here? The combination lock was old-fashioned, requiring a key and numbers. I didn't have either, but something made me try Robert's usual combination, our wedding date. Nothing. His birthday. Nothing. Then, on impulse, I tried Daniel's birthday. The lock clicked open. Inside were documents, photos, and a letter addressed to me in Robert's handwriting. My hands shook as I opened it. "My dearest Margaret, if you're reading this, something has happened that required you to find this safe. I pray you never do, but I know our son better than you think. I've watched Daniel's gambling for 2 years now. You don't know because I've been covering his debts, trying to get him help without worrying you. But it's getting worse, and I fear what he might become if something happens to me. Inside this safe is evidence of his gambling addiction, records of the money I've paid to keep him out of trouble, and contact information for the FBI agent who's been helping me document everything. Agent Patricia Morrison. Yes, the same one probably helping you now if things have gone as badly as I fear. I also included recordings of conversations with Daniel, where he talks about your money, about what he plans to do when the time comes. They're heartbreaking, but they're proof if you ever need it. My darling, I'm sorry I kept this from you. I wanted to protect you, to fix our son before you had to see what he was becoming. But if you're reading this, I failed. Please know that I love you more than words can express. Be strong. Trust Carol. I asked her years ago to watch over you if anything happened to me. And remember, Daniel's sickness doesn't diminish the love we shared or the good years we had as a family. All my love, forever, Robert. P.S. The key to the safety deposit box at First National is taped under drawer 3 in my desk. Everything else you need to know is there. I collapsed onto the couch. The letter crumpled in my fist. Robert had known. He'd seen what Daniel was becoming and tried to protect me, even from beyond the grave. He knew, I whispered to Carol. Robert knew everything. Carol held me as I sobbed, for my husband who'd carried this burden alone, for the son we'd both lost to addiction, for the family that had been rotting from within long before Ashley arrived. In Robert's desk, exactly where he'd said, was the safety deposit key. The next day, Carol and I went to the bank. The box contained more evidence than the FBI had found on their own. Recordings going back 3 years, photos of Daniel with known criminals, even a private investigator's report documenting his connection to the Torino crime family. But the most shocking item was a DVD labeled, "For Margaret, Watch Alone." That evening, in the privacy of my bedroom, I played it. Robert appeared on screen, thinner than I remembered, clearly already sick, though I hadn't known it yet. "My darling Margaret," he said, his voice weak but clear. "I'm recording this from my office. You're downstairs making dinner. I can smell your pot roast. It's October 15th, and I've just come from Dr. Patterson. The cancer is worse than we thought. I have maybe 6 months. I haven't told you yet because I need to fix things first. Daniel owes the Torino family $100,000. I'm going to pay it, but I'm also going to make sure he can't hurt you after I'm gone. I've been working with the FBI, with Agent Morrison, to build a case that will protect you if he ever." Robert paused, struggling with the words. If he ever tries to harm you for money. I know that sounds impossible. Our son hurting you. But addiction changes people. I've seen it happen in other families. The FBI will watch over you, even if you don't know they're there. I'm also changing my will secretly. Everything goes into a trust that Daniel can't touch without your explicit consent. He doesn't know about this. Let him think he'll inherit normally. It's safer that way. Margaret, my love, I'm sorry. Sorry I won't be there to protect you. Sorry our son became this stranger. Sorry I have to leave you to face this alone. But you're stronger than you know. You always have been. I love you forever. Robert. The recording ended with Robert reaching toward the camera, and I could see the tears on his face. All this time, I'd thought I was alone in this nightmare. But Robert had been fighting to protect me even while dying of cancer, setting up safeguards, building cases, preparing for the worst while hoping for the best. I called Agent Morrison immediately. You knew my husband? A pause. Yes, Margaret. He contacted us 2 years before his death. Made us promise to watch over you without your knowledge, unless something happened. When you were hospitalized, we were already monitoring the situation. You knew what Daniel and Ashley were planning? We suspected. But we needed evidence. Your husband made us promise not to intervene unless your life was in immediate danger. He believed Daniel might still choose differently, might still be saved. But he didn't choose differently. No, he didn't. That night, I sat in Robert's chair holding his letter, surrounded by evidence of his love and protection. Even in death, he'd been watching over me. The safe, the FBI connection, the trust structure, all of it had been Robert's way of protecting me from our son's darkness. My phone buzzed with a text from Emma. Lily drew you another picture. She says she misses her grandma and wants to show you how she learned to write her name. The past and future collided in that moment. Robert's protection from beyond the grave, and Lily's innocent love pointing toward tomorrow. The house that had witnessed such betrayal could also witness redemption. I looked around my violated but not conquered home. Tomorrow, I would continue cleaning, reclaiming, rebuilding. But tonight, I would simply sit in my husband's chair, feeling his presence, knowing I had been loved and protected even when I didn't know I needed it. The monsters had been vanquished. The network was destroyed. My son was facing justice. And somewhere out there, a little girl was learning to write her name so she could show her grandma. Life, despite everything, would continue. 3 months had passed since discovering Robert's hidden safe. The federal courthouse in Manhattan had become grimly familiar as I attended every hearing, watching my son's fate unfold. Today was different. Daniel had requested a face-to-face meeting, not through glass, as part of his plea agreement. His lawyer said he had information about other victims that he'd only share with me present. The meeting room was small, sterile, with cameras in every corner. Daniel sat shackled to the table, 30 pounds thinner, his expensive suit replaced by federal prison khaki. The arrogant man who'd stood in my hospital room demanding money was gone, replaced by someone hollow, broken. "Hello, Margaret," he said. Not Mom, he'd lost that right. "Daniel." I sat across from him, Agent Morrison beside me, recording device prominently placed on the table. "You look well," he said awkwardly. "The new hair color suits you." "Stop," I said sharply. "We're not here for pleasantries. You have information?" He nodded, pulling out a worn notebook. "I kept records Ashley didn't know about. Names, dates, amounts. 23 elderly victims before you. But there's something specific you need to know. She had a partner we haven't discussed." "Vincent? We know about him." "Not Vincent." Daniel's voice dropped. "Dr. Harold Morrison, at Westchester Medical. The head of geriatric psychiatry." My blood ran cold. That was the hospital where I'd been treated, where I'd nearly died. "He's been declaring elderly patients mentally incompetent for 15 years, Daniel continued. Ashley would identify targets, I'd create family friction, then doctor. Morrison would swoop in as the concerned physician recommending conservatorship. Once families had control, the victims would have accidents or sudden declines. "How many?" Agent Morrison asked, her professional composure cracking. "At least 40 that I know of, maybe more." He kept trophies, photos of each victim after death, labeled with how much money was extracted. Ashley showed them to me once, said it was to remind me that backing out meant becoming a photo in his collection. The revelation sickened me. A respected doctor, someone trusted with the most vulnerable patients, had been murdering for profit for over a decade. "There's more," Daniel said, his eyes flickering to me with something like shame. "About Dad." "What about Robert?" I tensed. Dr. Morrison was his oncologist golf partner. Dad's cancer was real, but Morrison might have accelerated it. Ashley hinted once that they'd been preparing the ground for years, that Dad's death was the first step. The room tilted. I gripped the table, struggling to breathe. "You're saying they murdered Robert?" "I don't know for certain, but the timeline fits. Dad started getting sick right after I met Ashley. She always knew too much about his treatment, his medications. Things I hadn't told her. Agent Morrison was already on her phone, barking orders about exhuming Robert's body, seizing Dr. Morrison's records, immediate arrests. But I couldn't focus on that. All I could think about was Robert, my beloved husband, possibly murdered while our son watched. "You knew?" I whispered. "You suspected they killed your father and you still—" I was in too deep. Daniel's composure finally cracked. By the time I suspected, I owed $300,000 to the Torinos. Ashley said if I backed out, she'd make sure I had an accident in prison. They owned guards, inmates, everyone. I was trapped. "You were a coward," I said coldly. "Your father might have been murdered, and you chose to let them try to murder me too, rather than face the consequences of your gambling." "Yes," he said simply. "I was a coward. I am a coward, and I'll live with that for whatever time I have left." "Speaking of time," Agent Morrison interrupted, returning to the table. "Daniel, the Torino family has put a price on your head. $200,000 to whoever kills you inside. You're being moved to witness protection in federal custody, but it's just delaying the inevitable," Daniel finished. "I know. I've accepted it." "No," I said suddenly, surprising everyone, including myself. "No, you don't get to accept it. You don't get to take the coward's way out again." "What do you want from me?" Daniel asked desperately. "I've confessed everything. I'm testifying against everyone. I've given up all the evidence. What more can I do?" "You can live," I said firmly. "Live with what you've done. Every day, every hour. That's your punishment, not death, but life. Life knowing what you did to your father's memory, to me, to your daughter." "Lily," he breathed, his face crumbling. "Does she?" "She knows nothing except that her father made bad choices. Emma's raising her beautifully despite everything you put them through. And I'm going to be the grandmother she deserves, the one who would never choose money over love." Daniel started crying then, ugly, wrenching sobs that shook his whole body. "I destroyed everything. Everything Dad built, everything you gave me, everything I could have been. For what? For gambling debts and a woman who was planning to kill me anyway." "Yes," I said simply. "You did." "Mrs. Sullivan," Agent Morrison said gently, "we need to discuss Dr. Morrison. If he's been operating for 15 years, there could be dozens more victims." "Hundreds," Daniel corrected through his tears. "He had a whole wing at Westchester Medical. The Sunset Wing for terminal and dementia patients. Ashley called it the Harvest Zone. Families grateful when their loved ones finally passed, never questioning the timing. My mind reeled at the scale of it. How many families had buried loved ones, never knowing they'd been murdered? How many inheritances had been stolen through medical murder? "He's still practicing," Agent Morrison said urgently. "Still has access to vulnerable patients." "Then stop him," I said. "Now. Today." She nodded, already coordinating with her team. Within hours, Dr. Harold Morrison would be arrested. His reign of medical murder finally ended. Daniel looked at me one last time. "Mom, Margaret, I need to tell you something about that Christmas. The night you fell. I don't want to hear. Please, just this." He took a shaky breath. "When I called you that night, asking you to come downstairs, there was a moment when I heard your voice, tired and trusting, and I almost warned you. Almost screamed, 'Don't come down, it's a trap.' But Ashley was standing right there with a knife, and she whispered that if I warned you, she'd kill us both right then. Make it look like a murder-suicide. I was a coward, but for that split second, I wanted to save you. But you didn't," I said flatly, "and I fell, and the nightmare began. Yes, and I'll hear the sound of your body hitting the floor for the rest of my life." I stood to leave, then paused at the door. Daniel, your father left something for you, a letter. I wasn't going to give it to you, but he believed even at your worst, redemption was possible. I don't share his faith, but he deserves to have his last wishes honored. I placed Robert's letter to Daniel on the table, one I'd found in the safety deposit box, dated just days before his death. I won't read it with you here, Daniel said quietly. I don't deserve to share that moment with anyone. As I left the federal building, Agent Morrison walked beside me. You did a brave thing, facing him like that. Did I? I feel like I've been cleaning up other people's messes. Robert's secrecy, Daniel's addiction, Ashley's evil. When do I get to just live? Now, she said simply. The network's destroyed, the killers are being arrested, and you have a granddaughter who needs you. Now you get to live. That evening, I video called Emma and Lily from my newly secured home. Lily had learned to write her whole name and held up paper after paper to show me. See, Grandma? Lily. That's me. That's wonderful, sweetheart, I said, meaning it completely. This was living, not the nightmare behind me, but this moment, this child, this future. The monsters were caged, the network was burning down, and I was finally free. The federal courtroom was packed on the day of Daniel's sentencing. 3 weeks had passed since our meeting, and in that time his cooperation had led to 17 more arrests, including Dr. Harold Morrison, who was found with enough evidence to convict him of 43 murders. The media called it the Harvest Wing Massacre, and families across the Northeast were demanding exhumations, second autopsies, justice for loved ones they'd buried, never knowing they'd been murdered. I sat in the front row, Carol beside me, as Daniel was let in. He looked even thinner, his prison uniform hanging loose, his eyes fixed on the floor. Ashley's trial was set for next month, but Daniel's plea deal meant his fate would be decided today. Judge Catherine Brooks, a woman known for her harsh sentences in elder abuse cases, reviewed the documents before her. Mr. Tudals's Noster. Comble. Daniel Sullivan, you stand before this court having pled guilty to conspiracy to commit murder, elder abuse, fraud, and theft. The pre-sentencing report indicates your cooperation has been substantial. However, the victim in this case is your own mother, which this court finds particularly heinous. Daniel stood, his lawyer beside him. Your Honor, my client wishes to make a statement. The judge nodded. Daniel turned to face me, and for the first time since this nightmare began, he looked me directly in the eyes without flinching. Margaret Sullivan is the best mother anyone could ask for, he began, his voice steady despite visible trembling. She raised me alone after my father's death, sacrificed everything for my education and happiness, and loved me unconditionally. In return, I conspired to murder her for money. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. The media had reported on the case, but hearing the confession so baldly stated was shocking. I stand here today alive only because of her mercy, Daniel continued. When the Torino family put a price on my head, my mother could have stayed silent. Instead, she demanded I be protected, not out of love. I destroyed that, but because she refused to let me take the coward's way out. She sentenced me to something worse than death, living with what I've done. He pulled out a paper, hands shaking. I want to read something my father wrote to me before he died, a letter my mother gave me despite everything. Robert Sullivan wrote, Son, addiction is not your identity. It's a disease that can be treated. Your actions have consequences, but they don't have to define your future. Choose recovery. Choose truth. Choose to be the man your mother raised, not the stranger you've become. Daniel's voice broke. I failed him in every way possible. I potentially contributed to his murder by bringing Ashley into our lives. I attempted to murder my mother. I abandoned my daughter and the woman I should have married. I became everything my parents raised me not to be. Your Honor, his lawyer interjected, my client's cooperation has been unprecedented. He's provided evidence on 67 victims across 15 years, leading to the complete dismantling of the Blackstone network. He's agreed to testify in all related trials, despite the danger to his life. Judge Brooks looked at me. Mrs. Sullivan, as the victim, you have the right to make a statement. I stood slowly, my prepared words suddenly feeling inadequate. Your Honor, I buried my husband 5 years ago thinking he died of cancer. I've now learned he may have been murdered. I spent 3 weeks in a hospital being systematically poisoned while my son knew about it. I've lost my sense of security, my trust in humanity, and the son I thought I raised. I paused, looking at Daniel. But I've also gained something. A granddaughter who deserves to know that redemption is possible, even for those who fall the furthest. I'm not asking for leniency for Daniel. He deserves every day of prison he receives. But I am asking that he be given the chance to serve that time, to live with his choices, and maybe, somehow, find a way to make amends that goes beyond cooperation with authorities. Mrs. Sullivan, the judge said gently, do you fear for your safety if he's eventually released? No, I said firmly. The man who tried to kill me was consumed by addiction and manipulation. That man needs to face justice. But somewhere inside is also the boy who once gave his lunch money to a classmate who forgot theirs, who cried when our cat died, who held my hand at his father's funeral. I don't know if that person can ever re-emerge, but he deserves the chance to try. The judge considered for a long moment. Mr. Sullivan, this court sentences you to 18 years in federal prison, with possibility of parole after 12 years contingent on continued cooperation, successful completion of addiction treatment, and genuine rehabilitation. You'll serve this time in protective custody due to the threats against your life. 18 years. Daniel would be 56 when released, if he survived. Lily would be 22, a young woman who might never want to know him. Furthermore, the judge continued, all assets in your name are forfeit. They'll be distributed among the victims of the Blackstone Network, with a trust established for your daughter, Lily Chen. Daniel nodded, accepting his fate without protest. As guards prepared to lead him away, he looked at me one last time. Mom Margaret, thank you. For the letter. For demanding I live. For showing me that real love doesn't come with a price tag. I know I can never earn your forgiveness, but I'll spend whatever time I have left trying to be worthy of the mercy you've shown. Don't try to earn my forgiveness, I said quietly. Earn Lily's. Be the father she deserves, even from prison. Write her letters she can read when she's older. Show her that people can change, that mistakes don't have to define us forever. He nodded, tears streaming down his face as they led him away. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Mrs. Sullivan? How does it feel to see your son sentenced? Do you really believe he can be redeemed? I stopped, looking directly at the cameras. I believe that justice was served today. My son committed horrific crimes and will pay for them. But I also believe that we are more than our worst moments. The Blackstone Network preyed on family bonds, turning love into weapon. Today, we've shown that love can also be about accountability, consequences, and the hope that even the most broken people can choose to change. Will you visit him in prison? Someone shouted. No, I said firmly. Daniel and I have said everything that needs saying. My focus now is on my granddaughter and on helping other victims of elder abuse. The Margaret Sullivan who would visit him died in that hospital. The woman standing here has different priorities. That evening, I sat with Emma and Lily in my home, truly mine again, cleansed of its ghosts. Lily was showing me her new drawings, chattering about kindergarten starting in the fall. Grandma, will you come to my first day of school? She asked hopefully. Wild horses couldn't keep me away, I promised. Emma smiled gratefully. Margaret, the trust the judge mentioned, it's substantial. Lily will be able to go to college, have opportunities. Good, I said. Something positive from all this horror. My phone buzzed with a text from Agent Morrison. Ashley Blackstone killed in prison. Another inmate. Investigation ongoing, but likely ordered by families of victims. I set the phone aside without commenting. Ashley had met the violent end she'd planned for so many others. There was justice in that, even if it wasn't the kind the courts provided. Grandma, are you sad? Lily asked, noticing my expression. No, sweetheart. Just thinking about how lucky I am to have you. She climbed into my lap, snuggling close. I'm lucky too. I have the best grandma ever. And Mommy says we can visit every week now that the bad people are gone. The bad people were gone. Or locked away. Or dead. And life, real life, could finally begin. The autumn leaves were falling outside my window 6 months after Daniel's sentencing. I sat in Robert's study, truly mine now, sorting through the last of the legal documents when Carol arrived with news that made my blood run cold. Margaret, Dr. Morrison made a deal. He's providing evidence about Robert's death in exchange for avoiding the death penalty. I set down my tea carefully, my hands surprisingly steady. Tell me. Robert's cancer was real, but Morrison administered experimental drugs that accelerated it. He documented everything, thinking he was conducting research. Your husband died 3 months earlier than he would have naturally. If this scene touched your heart, Tap, like to let me know it resonated with you. Do you see a glimpse of your own story in theirs? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. 3 months. 90 days stolen from us. Our last Christmas, New Year's, Valentine's Day, all erased by a monster in a white coat. There's more, Carol said gently. Morrison kept recordings of conversations with Ashley. She approached him 2 years before Robert died, when Daniel's gambling was starting. The whole thing was orchestrated from the beginning. I stood abruptly, walking to the window where Robert used to stand every morning with his coffee. She killed my husband to isolate me, to make me vulnerable. Yes, and there's something else. Morrison has a list of 30 other families where the same pattern occurred. Spouse dies mysteriously fast from illness, survivor remarries or their children marry within a year, then the survivor dies within 2 years. It was a formula. My phone rang, Emma calling. Margaret, I'm at the prison. Daniel, he tried to kill himself again. He's alive, but barely. He keeps asking for you. The room spun. Despite everything, my maternal instinct flickered. Is he... The doctors say he has maybe 48 hours. The Torinos poisoned him somehow, even in protective custody. The guards were paid off. He's dying, Margaret. I looked at Carol, who'd heard everything. You don't have to go, she said firmly. He lost the right to your presence when he conspired to murder you. But I thought of Robert's letter, his belief in redemption, his faith that even the lost could be found. I'll go, I said quietly. Not for Daniel. For Robert. And for Lily, so she knows her grandmother chose mercy even when it was undeserved. The prison hospital ward smelled of disinfectant and despair. Daniel lay unconscious, machines keeping him alive, his body failing from the poison. The doctor, a young woman who looked exhausted, explained quietly. The toxin was slow-acting, probably administered over weeks in his food. By the time symptoms showed, it was too late. His organs are shutting down. I sat beside the bed, looking at this stranger who wore my son's face. He was dying at 38, the same age Robert was when Lily was born. The parallel wasn't lost on me. Daniel's eyes fluttered open, unfocused, confused. Mom? His voice was barely a whisper. I'm here, I said, surprising myself by taking his hand. I read Dad's letter. Every day, he said. He said love doesn't keep score. That forgiveness is for the forgiver, not the forgiven. Robert was a better person than either of us, I said quietly. Mom, I need to tell you. About Lily. There's another account. One Ashley never found. In the Caymans. 200,000. I stole it from her. From the victim's money. I was going to run, before you fell. Take Emma and Lily, and disappear. But then I chose the money over them. Over you. Over everyone. He coughed, blood speckling his lips. The account information is in my cell. Hidden in the spine of Dad's book. The one about redemption he gave me for Christmas years ago. Give it to Lily, tell her. Tell her it's blood money, but maybe she can do something good with it. Why didn't you run? I asked. Why did you choose Ashley's plan over escape? Because I was a coward, he said simply. Running meant admitting what I'd become. Staying meant pretending I was still your son, still someone worth loving. The delusion was easier than the truth. A nurse entered, checking monitors, shaking her head slightly. Time was running out. Mom, there's one more thing. Ashley had a partner we never identified. Someone high up, protecting the whole operation. She called them the banker. They're still out there. Still hunting. Be careful. Do you know who? No. But they knew everything about our family, personal things only someone close would know. His breathing became labored. Mom, will you tell Lily about me? The good parts? Before I became this? I thought about lying, about letting him die with that comfort. But Robert had valued truth above comfort. I'll tell her you existed, I said carefully, that you made terrible choices but tried to provide for her. She'll know she came from both darkness and light, and that she gets to choose which path to follow. That's fair. His eyes found mine with sudden clarity. Mom, I'm sorry. Not the manipulative sorry I said before, when I wanted something. Really sorry. For Dad, for you, for Christmas, for all of it. I know, I said, and realized I meant it. This wasn't the calculated Daniel who'd conspired against me. This was the broken remnant, finally honest in his last hours. Will you stay? He asked, sounding suddenly like the little boy who used to be afraid of thunderstorms. Yes, I said simply. For the next 6 hours, I sat with my son as he died. We didn't speak much, there was nothing left to say, but sometimes he squeezed my hand, and I squeezed back, two humans connected by history, if no longer by love. As dawn broke, Daniel's breathing grew shallow. Mom, he whispered, I see Dad. He's waiting, he says. He says he forgives me. Do you think that's real? Or just dying brain? I think Robert's love transcends death, I said honestly. If anyone could forgive the unforgivable, it would be him. Daniel smiled slightly, the first genuine smile I'd seen from him in years. Tell Lily. Tell her grandmother's love is the strongest force in the universe. Stronger than greed. Stronger than addiction. Stronger than death. Those were his last words. Daniel Sullivan died at 6:47 a.m., October 19th. Holding his mother's hand, finally free from the demons that had consumed him, I sat with his body for another hour, not grieving the man he'd become but mourning the boy he'd been, the future he'd thrown away, the father Lily would never know. Emma arrived as they were taking him away. You came, she said, surprised. He was my son, I said simply. Not the one who tried to kill me, that man died months ago. But the boy I raised deserved to have someone with him at the end. What do I tell Lily? The truth, when she's ready. That her father lost his way but found some peace at the end. That love is complicated and forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. That she comes from a complex legacy but gets to write her own story. That evening I stood in my garden, planting spring bulbs where the roses used to be. New life from old soil. Carol helped, neither of us speaking about the day's events. My phone rang. Agent Morrison. Margaret, we found the Cayman account Daniel mentioned. But there's something else. The bank records show deposits from someone at First National Bank of Westchester, someone you know. Who? But even as I asked, a chill ran down my spine. We're investigating. Stay vigilant. Lock your doors. The banker is still out there, and with Daniel dead and Ashley gone, you're the only loose end. As darkness fell, I stood in my fortified house, knowing the war wasn't over. Somewhere in my careful rebuilt life was a viper, someone I trusted who'd helped orchestrate everything. But tonight, I wouldn't hunt for them. Tonight, I would mourn my son properly. Not the monster he became, but the child he was. The man he could have been. Tomorrow, the hunt for the banker would begin. Tonight, a mother's complicated grief was enough. The funeral was small, just Emma, Lily, Carol, and myself at Westchester Memorial Cemetery. We buried Daniel next to Robert on a gray October morning, rain threatening but never quite falling. Lily placed a drawing on the casket, a stick figure with wings labeled Daddy flying above clouds. She didn't cry. At 4, death was still abstract, a word adults used when someone went away forever. Will Daddy be with Grandpa Robert now? She asked, her small hand in mine. I believe so, sweetheart, I said, though my faith had been shattered along with everything else. As we walked back to the cars, I noticed a familiar figure standing by a distant grave. My blood froze. Marcus Klein, the bank manager from First National who'd processed my transfers for years, who'd helped me cancel them when I finally stood up to Daniel and Ashley. He was watching us, and when our eyes met, he didn't look away. Carol, I whispered, call Agent Morrison, now. But Klein was already walking toward us, his hands visible, his expression unreadable. Mrs. Sullivan, we need to talk. Stay back, Carol warned, stepping protectively in front of Lily. I'm not here to hurt anyone, Klein said quietly. I'm here to confess. I'm the banker. The words hung in the air like a physical presence. This man, who'd shown such concern when I canceled the transfers, who'd seemed so genuinely worried about my well-being, he'd been part of it all along. Emma, take Lily to the car, I said firmly. Lock the doors. Once they were safely away, I faced Klein. You helped them try to murder me? No, he said quickly. I helped them steal from you, yes. But I never knew about the murder plot until it was too late. That's why I'm here. Daniel's dead, Ashley's dead, the network is destroyed, but you deserve to know the whole truth. Agent Morrison's car screeched into the cemetery parking lot, but I held up my hand to stop her from immediately arresting Klein. Talk, I commanded. Fast. I've been moving money for the Blackstone Network for 12 years, Klein began, his voice steady despite the federal agents surrounding him. Elderly clients' accounts, small amounts that wouldn't be noticed, redirected to offshore holdings. When Daniel came to me 3 years ago, desperate about his gambling debts, I saw an opportunity. You connected him with Ashley, I said, the pieces falling into place. I thought it would be simple fraud. You had millions, he needed thousands. Ashley specialized in extracting money from family situations. I never imagined. He paused, genuine anguish crossing his face. Mrs. Sullivan, I swear I didn't know they planned to kill you. When you came in that day to cancel the transfers, when I saw the fear in your eyes, I realized what I'd enabled. Why should we believe you? Agent Morrison demanded, hand on her weapon. Klein pulled out a flash drive from his pocket, moving slowly to avoid startling the agents. Because I've documented everything, every transaction, every account, every victim for 12 years, including the $30 million hidden in accounts the FBI hasn't found yet. Money that can be returned to victims' families. Why confess now? I asked. Why here? At my son's funeral? Because Daniel called me the night before he died, Klein said, surprising everyone, from the prison hospital. He could barely speak, but he begged me to protect you. Said the banker was still active, still dangerous. He didn't know it was me. He thought he was warning me about someone else. My legs felt weak. Even dying, even after everything, Daniel had tried to protect me. He said his mother deserved the truth, Klein continued. That lies had destroyed everything good in his life. So here's my truth, Mrs. Sullivan. I'm guilty of fraud, conspiracy, money laundering, but not murder, and I'm willing to face the consequences. Mr. Klein, Agent Morrison said formally, you're under arrest. As they cuffed him, Klein looked at me one last time. Your husband knew something was wrong. Robert came to me 2 months before he died, asking about unusual patterns in your accounts. I convinced him it was Daniel's gambling, nothing more. But he kept investigating. That's when Ashley decided he had to go. You knew they were killing him? The words came out as a scream. He suspected after, when his cancer accelerated so quickly. But I was in too deep by then. The network would have killed me too. He hung his head. I'm sorry, Mrs. Sullivan, for all of it. They led him away, this ordinary-looking man who'd facilitated so much evil from behind a banker's desk. Another betrayal, another person I'd trusted who'd been working against me all along. That evening, I sat in my kitchen with Carol and Agent Morrison, reviewing Klein's flash drive. The scope was staggering. Elderly victims across the entire eastern seaboard, their life savings slowly drained while they trusted the nice bank manager with their finances. With this evidence, we can recover most of the stolen funds, Agent Morrison said. The victims' families will get some justice. Justice, I repeated hollowly. Robert's still dead. Daniel's still dead. All those elderly people are still dead. Where's the justice in that? The living get restitution. The guilty face consequences. It's not perfect, but it's something. My phone rang. Emma. Margaret, can you come over? Lily's asking for you. She's having nightmares about the funeral. 20 minutes later, I sat on Lily's bed in their small apartment, holding my granddaughter as she clung to me. Grandma, why do people go to heaven? She asked, her voice muffled against my shoulder. Sometimes people get very sick or very old, and their bodies stop working, I explained gently. But Daddy wasn't old. No, sweetheart, sometimes people make choices that hurt them, and they can't get better. Did Daddy make bad choices? I stroked her hair, choosing my words carefully. Yes, but he also made one very good choice. He made sure you and Mommy would be taken care of. He loved you very much. Did he love you? The question pierced me. In his own way, I think he tried to. But sometimes people forget how to love properly. They get confused and make mistakes. I won't forget, Lily said firmly. I'll love you and Mommy forever and ever. and will love you forever and ever too." As she drifted off to sleep, Emma and I sat in the living room, sharing tea in silence. "The money Daniel hid," Emma said finally. "The 200,000. I don't want it. It's Lily's. For college, for opportunities." "Blood money," Emma interrupted. "Stolen from other people's grandparents. How could I let her benefit from that?" I thought for a moment. What if we used it differently? Created a fund for children whose grandparents were victims of elder abuse? Let something good come from all this evil? Emma's eyes lit up. The Daniel Sullivan Memorial Fund? No, that honors him too much. The Lily Chen Hope Fund, I suggested. For innocent children affected by family financial crimes. Let her name represent hope, not shame. Yes, Emma agreed. When she's older, she'll understand that her father's mistakes led to helping other children. As I drove home that night, I passed First National Bank, where Klein had pretended to care while stealing from the vulnerable. The building looked different now, sinister, a monument to hidden betrayal. But across the street, a new senior center was being built, funded partially by recovered Blackstone network assets. From ashes, something good growing. My phone buzzed with a text from Agent Morrison. Klein's evidence led to 14 more arrests tonight. The network is officially dead. You're safe, Margaret. It's over. Safe. Such a simple word for such a complex feeling. I thought of Robert, murdered while trying to protect me. Daniel, dead at 38, finally free from his demons. Ashley, killed in prison by someone else's quest for justice. Klein, facing life in federal prison. Dr. Morrison, awaiting trial for 43 murders. So much death, so much betrayal, so much loss. But also Lily, sleeping peacefully, dreaming of her grandmother's love. Emma, brave and determined to build a good life. Carol, steadfast through everything. The victims' families finally getting answers. It was over, but it would never really be over. The scars would remain, the trust would never fully return, the shadows would always linger at the edges of joy. But tomorrow, Lily would wake up and want pancakes. Life would continue. And maybe, eventually, that would be enough. 1 year had passed since Daniel's funeral. The autumn leaves were falling again, but this time I watched them from the window of my new apartment in White Plains, smaller than the colonial house, but truly mine, untainted by memories of betrayal. I'd sold the Westchester house 6 months ago to a young family who knew nothing of its dark history. They'd transform it with their own memories, their own love. "Grandma, look, I can write cursive now." Lily burst through the door after school, her backpack bouncing, Emma close behind. They visited every Tuesday and Thursday now, our routine as comforting as morning coffee. "Show me, sweetheart," I said, pulling her onto my lap at the kitchen table. She carefully wrote Margaret Sullivan in wobbly cursive letters. "That's you. And look," she wrote Lily Chen Sullivan underneath. "Sullivan?" I looked at Emma questioningly. Emma blushed slightly. She asked if she could add your last name. Said she wanted everyone to know she has the best grandma. I didn't have the heart to explain. Everything. The weight of that innocent request, taking the name of the man who'd tried to kill me, but also the name of Robert, who'd loved us all, sat heavy in the room. "If you want that name, you can have it," I told Lily, kissing her forehead. "Names don't define us, our choices do." The doorbell rang, interrupting the moment. Through the peephole, I saw Agent Morrison, but her usual professional demeanor was replaced with urgency. "Emma, take Lily to the bedroom." "Now," I said quietly. Once they were gone, I opened the door. "What's wrong?" "Margaret, we have a problem. Marcus Klein was killed in federal prison yesterday, made to look like suicide, but we know better." My blood chilled. The network was destroyed. Everyone's in custody or dead. That's what we thought. But Klein left a message before he died, hidden in his cell. 3 words, "Check the lawyer." Which lawyer? There were dozens involved. That's the problem. We're investigating everyone, but Margaret, someone's cleaning house, eliminating witnesses. Klein was just the first. As if on cue, my phone buzzed with a news alert. Federal witness Dr. Harold Morrison found dead in protective custody. 2 in 1 day, Agent Morrison said grimly. Someone's panicking. The trial for the remaining network members starts next month, and witnesses are being eliminated. Am I in danger? Is Lily? We're assigning protection again. And Margaret, there's something else. We found anomalies in Robert's estate planning, documents that don't match his lawyer's records. Someone with legal access altered things after his death. Robert's lawyer, James Whitman, who'd handled our affairs for 20 years, who'd comforted me at the funeral, who'd helped me navigate the probate process while someone was actively trying to kill me. No, I whispered. Not James. He's been like family. That's exactly why he'd be perfect for the network. Trusted, above suspicion, with access to every elderly client's financial information. The room spun. Another betrayal, another trusted person revealed as a monster. Would it never end? Where is Whitman now? I asked. That's the problem. He disappeared 3 days ago. Closed his practice, emptied his accounts, vanished. We think Klein's confession spooked him. Emma appeared in the doorway. Margaret, what's happening? Just some legal matters, I lied smoothly. Why don't you and Lily stay for dinner? I'll make spaghetti. But Emma knew me too well now. It's about the network, isn't it? They're still out there? We're handling it, Agent Morrison assured her. You're both safe. That evening, as I made dinner with shaking hands, Lily chattered about her school day, blissfully unaware that her grandmother was once again a target. Emma helped. Our movements synchronized from months of shared meals, found family forged in crisis. After Lily was asleep on my couch, Emma and I sat on the balcony, despite the cold, needing air, needing space from walls that suddenly felt like they were closing in. Will it ever really be over? Emma asked quietly. I don't know, I admitted. Every time we think we found them all, another one emerges, like cancer cells we missed. Daniel never mentioned Whitman? No. But then, Daniel didn't know about Klein either. The network compartmentalized. Nobody knew everyone involved. My phone rang, Carol calling. Margaret, I just heard from a friend at the courthouse. James Whitman's body was found in his car at Bear Mountain. Apparent suicide, but probably murder, I finished. Someone's eliminating everyone who could testify. Margaret, there's more. They found documents in his car. Lists of elderly clients, their assets, their medical conditions. You weren't the only target. There were 60 more being groomed. 60 more potential victims. 60 more families that could have been destroyed. We stopped it, I said, needing to believe it. Whatever we didn't know, whoever we didn't catch, we stopped the killing. But that night I couldn't sleep. Every sound made me jump. Every shadow could hide a threat. The network was like a hydra, cut off one head, 2 more appeared. How many more people had been involved? How many more were still out there, waiting? If this part touched something deep inside you, hit that like button so I know it reached you. Do you see your own reflection in this character's journey? Tell me in the comments your story might just inspire someone else. At 3 a.m., my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. You think you won, but you only found the first layer. The real network runs deeper than you can imagine. Stop investigating or Lily pays the price. My hands trembled as I immediately called Agent Morrison. Within minutes, my apartment was full of federal agents. Emma was in protective custody with Lily, and I was being relocated again. This isn't over, Agent Morrison said as we drove through the dark to another safe house. Someone powerful is still out there. Someone who controlled Klein, Whitman, maybe even Ashley. How do we find them? We follow the money. 30 million is still missing. Someone has it. Someone's using it to eliminate witnesses and threaten you. As dawn broke over the Hudson Valley, I sat in another sterile safe house, thinking about the text. They'd threatened Lily. Crossed the one line that transformed my fear into rage. I want to be bait, I said suddenly. Agent Morrison looked at me like I'd lost my mind. Absolutely not. They're eliminating witnesses because the trial's coming. They need me dead before I testify. So let them come for me. But this time, we'll be ready. Margaret, you've been through enough. And I'll go through more if it means ending this. They threatened my granddaughter. I was willing to hide when it was just about me. But Lily? No, we end this now. Over the next hours, we developed a plan. I would return to my apartment, seemingly unprotected. We'd leak information that I had additional evidence, documents that could expose the entire remaining network. Make myself irresistible bait. This is insane, Carol said when she heard. You're 73 years old. You've already survived one murder attempt. Which is why they won't expect me to fight back. They see an old woman traumatized, broken. They don't see someone with nothing left to lose except her granddaughter. 3 days later, I sat in my apartment, alone except for the hidden agents and cameras, waiting. The judges had been briefed, the prosecutors prepared. Everyone who'd received threats was in protection. Except me, the bait in a trap that would either catch the last of the monsters or get me killed. But for Lily, for all the potential victims, for Robert's memory, and even for Daniel's tortured soul, I would take that risk. The sun set. Darkness fell. And somewhere in that darkness, I knew someone was coming for me. The apartment was silent except for the ticking of Robert's antique clock, one of the few things I'd kept from our old life, 11:47 p.m. I sat in the living room with a cup of cold tea, pretending to read while every nerve in my body screamed with tension. Agent Morrison's voice crackled softly in my hidden earpiece. All units in position. Remember, Margaret, the moment you see anything. The lights went out. Not just mine, the entire building, the whole block. Through my window, I saw darkness stretching for blocks. A coordinated power outage. Whoever was coming had resources. We've lost visual, Morrison's voice said urgently. Night vision active. Margaret, get to the safe room. But I stayed seated. Running would spook them. The trap needed them confident, careless. A soft scraping at my door, not the violent entry I'd expected, but subtle, professional. The lock clicked open without triggering the alarm. They had override codes. Inside help. Again. A figure entered, moving silently through my apartment. Then another. 2 of them, dressed in black, faces covered. They moved toward my bedroom, expecting to find me asleep. Vulnerable. She's not here, one hissed, a woman's voice, familiar but unplaceable. The living room, the other said. Male, younger. They rounded the corner and stopped, seeing me sitting calmly in the chair, fully dressed, obviously waiting. Hello, I said quietly. I've been expecting you. The woman pulled off her mask, and my heart stopped. Ashley's mother, Claudia Sterling, the woman we thought was just another victim of her daughter's schemes, who'd played the grieving mother when Ashley was arrested. She stood before me now, very much alive, very much in charge. Hello, Margaret, she said coldly. You killed my daughter. Your daughter killed herself with her choices, I replied, keeping my voice steady despite my racing heart. She was a child following orders. My orders, the network you destroyed? I built it. Ashley was just the pretty face, the one who could seduce weak men like your pathetic son. The words hit like physical blows, but I couldn't react. The agents were listening, recording. We needed her confession. You ran the entire operation? Claudia laughed, a sound like breaking glass. 40 years, Margaret, 40 years of harvesting from the elderly, the weak, the trusting. Your husband was one of hundreds. Small doses of carcinogens in his coffee during those golf games with Dr. Morrison. Slow, untraceable, looking completely natural. You murdered Robert yourself? I supervised. Morrison administered. Ashley seduced. Your son betrayed. Everyone played their part perfectly until you refused to die on schedule. The young man shifted nervously. We should finish this. Patience, Marcus, Claudia snapped. Then to me. You want to know how deep this goes? Your family lawyer, Whitman? He wasn't part of the network. We killed him to throw you off. Klein at the bank? He thought he was working for Ashley, never knew I existed. Even Morrison only knew me as control. Why tell me this? I asked, though I knew. Ego. The mastermind's fatal flaw. Needing recognition. Because you're about to die, and I want you to know you only scratched the surface. I have operations in 30 states. Politicians, judges, doctors, bankers, all mine. Your little victory here? Meaningless. The machine continues. The FBI knows everything. I lied. They know nothing. They have Ashley's sloppy network, not mine. And after tonight, when they find you dead from a heart attack, the same drug cocktail that killed your husband, actually poetic, don't you think? They'll close the case. The grieving grandmother finally succumbed to stress. She pulled out a syringe, the liquid inside clear as water. It's painless. More mercy than you showed my Ashley, letting her rot in prison until someone shanked her. I didn't kill Ashley. Other victims' families did. Because you exposed her. Claudia's composure cracked. She was my protege, my heir. Brilliant, beautiful, ruthless. And you destroyed her. She destroyed herself when she tried to murder innocent people. Innocent? Claudia laughed. Rich elderly people hoarding wealth while young families struggle? They were already dead. Just walking corpses clutching their money. We gave that wealth purpose. Circulation. Life. You gave it to yourselves, I said, standing slowly. You're nothing but thieves and killers dressed up in philosophy. Enough, Claudia said, advancing with the syringe. Time to join your husband and son. Now, I shouted. The lights blazed on. The power outage had been ours, controlled, part of the trap. Federal agents burst through every entrance. Claudia spun, trying to run, but found herself facing Agent Morrison's gun. Drop the weapon, Morrison commanded. But Claudia was faster than her age suggested. She grabbed me, syringe at my throat. Everyone back or she dies. The young man, Marcus, tried to run but was tackled immediately. Claudia backed toward the balcony door, dragging me with her. You think you've won? She hissed in my ear. You have no idea how many of us there are. Kill me, 10 more, take my place. Then we'll stop them too, I said, surprising myself with my calm. You? A pathetic old woman whose own son tried to murder her? Yes, I said firmly. Me. Because I survived, because I'm still here, because every time you monsters think you've won, someone like me stands up and says no. I felt the needle pierce my skin slightly, a drop of poison entering my bloodstream. But then Claudia gasped, her grip loosening. I turned to see Carol behind her. Having struck her with Robert's heavy bookend, she'd been hiding in the bedroom, another part of our trap. Claudia fell, the syringe clattering away. Agents swarmed her, restraints clicking into place. We need medical now, Morrison shouted. She's been injected. But I felt nothing. No burning, no weakness. The syringe was examined quickly. It's empty, the medical team reported. Just residue, not enough to harm. Claudia laughed from the floor, blood running from where Carol had struck her. You think you've won, but you've only delayed the inevitable. We are legion. We are everywhere. Every hospital, every bank, every courtroom. You'll never be safe. Maybe not, I said, standing over her. But neither will you. Every elderly person you target might be ready. Every family you try to destroy might fight back. Your 40-year reign of terror ends tonight. As they led her away, she turned one last time. Your granddaughter, pretty little Lily. She'll grow old too someday, and we'll be waiting. The threat should have terrified me. Instead, it filled me with resolve. And I'll make sure she's ready for you, I called back. Hours later, after medical checks and endless debriefings, I sat with Carol and Agent Morrison in my violated but victorious apartment. Claudia Sterling's arrest led to 100 more overnight, Morrison reported. She kept meticulous records, thinking she'd never be caught. The entire network, the real network, is finished. All because you were brave enough to be bait, Carol added. Not brave, I corrected. Just tired of being afraid. Tired of running. Tired of evil winning because good people do nothing. My phone buzzed. Emma texting that Lily was asking for me, wanting to know if Grandma was okay. Tell her I'm perfect, I replied. Tell her I'll see her tomorrow. We have a life to live. And for the first time since that horrible Christmas 3 years ago, I actually believed it. The monsters were caged. The network was destroyed. The war was over. Tomorrow, Lily and I would bake cookies, read stories, and build new memories untainted by the darkness. We had won. 2 years had passed since Claudia Sterling's arrest. The courthouse in Lower Manhattan was packed for the final day of her trial, the last of 147 defendants from the nationwide network. I sat in the gallery with Emma and Carol, watching justice finally close its books on the horror that had consumed 5 years of my life. Has the jury reached a verdict? Judge Brooks asked. We have, Your Honor. On all counts of murder, conspiracy, elder abuse, and racketeering, guilty. Claudia, now 76 herself, stood stoically as the judge pronounced her sentence, life without parole, to be served consecutively with sentences from 12 other states. She would die in prison, as she'd caused so many others to die in their homes. As they led her away, she looked at me one last time. No threats now, no bravado. Just the hollow stare of someone who'd lost everything in pursuit of everything. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed, but I pushed past them. Today wasn't about media attention. It was about what came next. That afternoon, I stood in the conference room of the Sullivan Chen Foundation for Elder Protection, the organization Emma and I had built with the recovered funds from Daniel's hidden account and donations from grateful families whose elderly relatives had been saved by our investigation. "Welcome, everyone." I addressed the room full of social workers, lawyers, doctors, and advocates. Today marks not just the end of the Sterling Network, but the beginning of our expanded mission. On the wall behind me hung 3 photos. Robert, smiling at our last anniversary dinner, Daniel as a boy, before gambling consumed him, and Lily, now 6, holding her kindergarten graduation certificate day. The Sterling Network succeeded because isolation kills, I continued. They targeted elderly people whose families were distant, distracted, or dysfunctional. They exploited the epidemic of loneliness in our aging population. Our foundation aims to rebuild those connections before predators can exploit them. Dr. Patricia Chen, who joined our board after leaving the hospital, presented our new program. We're establishing wellness checks in 12 cities, partnering with banks to flag suspicious transfers, and creating a hotline for elderly people who suspect they're being exploited. "What about families like mine?" a woman in the audience asked. "Where the adult children are the predators?" I recognized her pain. Mrs. Harrison, whose daughter had tried to poison her for inheritance money, inspired by the Sterling case's media coverage. "That's our greatest challenge," I admitted. "When family becomes the enemy, where do we turn?" That's why we're creating safe houses specifically for elderly abuse victims, places where they can recover and rebuild without fear. After the meeting, I drove to Westchester Cemetery. It was December 19th. The 4th anniversary of that terrible Christmas season when everything began. I placed white roses on Robert's grave, red ones on Daniel's. "We did it, Robert," I said quietly. "The network is gone. All of them. Your documentation helped save hundreds of lives." At Daniel's grave, I struggled for words. "Your daughter is thriving. She's brilliant, kind, nothing like what you became. Emma's raising her beautifully. I tell her stories about when you were young, before the sickness took hold. She knows you loved her, even if you couldn't show it properly." A small hand slipped into mine. Lily stood beside me, having convinced Emma to bring her despite the cold. "Is this where Daddy sleeps?" she asked. "His body is here," I said carefully. "But some people believe the important parts of us go somewhere else after. Like heaven? Maybe. Or maybe they stay in the hearts of people who remember the good parts." Lily considered this with 6-year-old seriousness. "I'll remember the good parts then. The money he saved for me. The letters he wrote that Mommy keeps. That's the daddy I'll remember." Such wisdom from someone so young. Perhaps because she'd never known the corrupted version, she could hold on to the fragments of good without the weight of betrayal. That evening, we held our new tradition, Christmas dinner on December 19th, creating joy before the anniversary of pain. My apartment was full. Emma and Lily, Carol and her partner Janet, Agent Morrison, now just Patricia to us, Dr. Chen and her son James, even Tony the taxi driver and his family. "A toast," Carol proposed, raising her glass. "To Margaret Sullivan, who turned the worst betrayal imaginable into a force for justice. To survival," I countered, "and to chosen family, which can be stronger than blood." As we ate and laughed, Lily performed the Christmas play she'd learned at school, complete with costume changes and dramatic gestures. Watching her, I saw echoes of Daniel's charisma, but channeled into joy instead of manipulation. "Grandma," she announced during dessert, "I've decided what I want to be when I grow up." "What's that, sweetheart?" "A protector. Like you. Someone who stops bad people from hurting grandmas and grandpas." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "Where did that come from?" "Miss Patterson at school said Grandma Margaret is a hero. That she saved lots of old people from mean families. I want to do that too." "It's hard work," I warned gently. "Sometimes the bad people are people you love." "That's the saddest part," Lily said solemnly. "But that's why we need protectors, right? For when love goes wrong?" Later, after everyone had gone home except Emma and Lily, we sat watching Christmas movies, Lily asleep between us on the couch. "Do you ever regret it?" Emma asked quietly, fighting back instead of just letting it go. "Never," I said firmly. "The pain would have been there either way. At least this way, It meant something. It saved others. Daniel would be proud, she said, then caught herself. Sorry, I shouldn't. No, you're right. The real Daniel, the one before the gambling, would be proud. He'd be horrified by what he became, but proud that we turned his darkness into light for others. My phone buzzed with an email from the foundation. Another family saved. An elderly man in Portland whose son had been slowly poisoning him, caught because his daughter recognized the symptoms from our awareness campaign. 143, Emma said, seeing the number. That's how many elderly people we've saved so far. Robert would say it's not enough. He'd want to save them all. We can try, Emma said. Lily and I aren't going anywhere. This is our fight too now. As midnight approached, marking officially 4 years since that horrible Christmas, I stood on my balcony looking at the lights of the city. Somewhere out there were other Margarets, other Roberts, facing betrayal from those they loved most. But now they weren't alone. They had resources, advocates, hope. The Sterling network was gone, but others would rise. Evil always did, but so did good, and we'd be ready. Grandma? Lily appeared beside me in her pajamas. Can't sleep? Just thinking, sweetheart. About sad things. About how sometimes the saddest things teach us to be strongest. She hugged my legs. I love you, Grandma. Forever and always, no matter what. I love you too, Lily. Forever and always. As we went inside, I noticed it had started snowing, soft, white flakes covering the darkness with beauty. Like forgiveness, perhaps, or just like snow, offering a clean slate for tomorrow. The war was over, the healing continued, and life, complicated and painful but ultimately precious, went on. 5 years had passed since that snowy night when Lily hugged me on the balcony. Now 11 years old, she stood before a packed auditorium at the Sullivan Chen Foundation's annual Christmas Gala, delivering a speech that would have made both Robert and even Daniel, in his better days, proud. My father tried to kill my grandmother for money, Lily said clearly into the microphone, causing gasps throughout the room. That's not a secret in our family, it's our truth. But here's what I've learned from Grandma Margaret. Our worst truths can become our greatest teachers if we have the courage to face them. I sat in the front row, tears streaming down my face as this remarkable child, no young woman, transformed our family's tragedy into a message of hope. The knowledge that evil can wear familiar faces is painful, Lily continued, but it's also powerful. That knowledge saved 237 elderly people last year alone through our foundation. My father's darkness became a light for others. That's the most important lesson my grandmother taught me, that we can choose what grows from our pain. Emma reached over and squeezed my hand. At 39, she had become the foundation's executive director, turning our personal nightmare into a national movement. The woman who once hid in fear now stood as a fierce advocate for the vulnerable. After Lily's speech, an unexpected visitor approached, someone I hadn't seen in 5 years. Marcus Webb, Daniel's former attorney, now graying and worn. Mrs. Sullivan, he said quietly, I need to tell you something. Daniel. He left another letter. I was instructed to give it to you only after 5 years had passed. My hands trembled as I took the sealed envelope. Why now? He said you'd need time to heal first, to see Lily grow, to understand that some things transcend even the worst betrayals. I opened the letter privately in the foundation's office, Emma and Carol flanking me. Mom, if you're reading this, 5 years have passed. Lily is probably 11 now. The same age I was when I promised Dad I'd take care of you. I failed that promise in the worst possible way, but maybe this letter can be a different kind of keeping. The knowledge I'm sharing now might hurt, but you deserve the complete truth. Ashley didn't find me by accident. I sought her out. I'd heard whispers in gambling circles about someone who could solve family problems. I was drowning in debt, and you were my only solution. I initiated our relationship, not her. This doesn't absolve her or the network, but I need you to know that my evil wasn't just weakness or manipulation. It was a choice, multiple choices. Every day for 3 years, I chose money over mother. But here's what haunts me most. You would have given me the money if I'd asked. Your love was so complete that you would have bankrupted yourself to save me, and knowing that, I still chose betrayal. That's the son you raised. That's the monster I became. Yet you still came to my deathbed. You still held my hand. You still ensure Lily knows she came from both darkness and light. That mercy, Mom, is the greatest lesson any child could receive, that love can coexist with justice, that forgiveness doesn't require forgetting. I don't ask for your forgiveness. I ask only that you share this knowledge with others, that sometimes the child you raised with all your love can become your greatest threat. Not because you failed, but because evil doesn't respect love. The education you gave me, the values you taught, the sacrifices you made, none of it was armor against my own choices. Tell other parents this hard truth. Loving perfectly doesn't guarantee being loved in return. Sometimes protection means accepting that brutal lesson. All my wasted love, Daniel. The letter fell from my numb fingers. Even from beyond the grave, Daniel had found a way to twist the knife one more time, but also to provide a strange kind of closure. He's right, I said finally. About the lesson. We tell parents that enough love can save their children, but sometimes it can't. Sometimes the knowledge we need most is that we're not responsible for other people's evil, even when those people are our children. That evening, at the gala's conclusion, I took the stage myself. 5 years ago, I nearly died at the hands of my own son. Today, I stand before you not as a victim, but as proof that survival is possible. The knowledge I've gained through pain has become education for hundreds of families. The lessons written in my scars now protect others from similar wounds. I look directly at the cameras broadcasting this event. To those watching who fear their own families, who suspect they're being exploited, who feel trapped by blood ties, you are not alone. The hardest knowledge to accept is that family can be dangerous, but accepting that knowledge is the first step toward safety. The greatest lesson I've learned is this. Love without boundaries is not love. It's enabling. Education about elder abuse starts with understanding that anyone, regardless of their relationship to you, can become a predator when money is involved. The bitterest knowledge is often the most necessary. As I concluded, something extraordinary happened. One by one, elderly people in the audience stood up, survivors who'd found strength through our foundation. Then their families rose, the ones who'd chosen protection over profit. Soon, the entire auditorium was on their feet. This is our shared lesson, I continued, voice breaking with emotion. That survival is possible, that education saves lives, that knowledge, even painful knowledge, is power, and that choosing justice over blood is sometimes the greatest act of love. Later, as the gala ended, Lily found me on the same balcony where we'd stood 5 years earlier. Grandma, do you think Daddy would be proud of what we've built? I considered lying, giving her comfort. But she deserved the truth. The education that would protect her. The father who existed before his choices would be proud. But Lily, here's the hardest lesson I can teach you. People aren't just good or bad. They're choices, accumulated over time. Your father made terrible choices that erased the good man he could have been. That knowledge hurts, but it also protects you from believing that love alone can save someone who chooses darkness. She nodded solemnly. That's why I'm going to law school one day. To make sure other grandmothers get justice too. That's my girl, I said, hugging her close. As we stood there, snow began falling again. December 19th's annual gift, covering the darkness with pristine white. But this time, I didn't see it as forgiveness or a clean slate. I saw it as knowledge made visible, that beauty and cold can coexist, that gentleness can be deadly, that what appears pure might hide danger. Dear viewers of Voices of Auntie Rose, this is where our story ends, but perhaps your education begins. How many of you recognize these patterns in your own families? How many elderly parents watching are afraid of their own children? How many adult children are witnessing their siblings exploit parental love? The knowledge shared here isn't just entertainment, it's potentially life-saving education. Every lesson Margaret learned was written in pain, but now it's written here for you to learn without suffering the same betrayal. Please, share your thoughts in the comments below. Has this story touched your heart? Have you seen similar situations in real life? Your shared experiences become education for others who might be suffering in silence. Like and subscribe to Voices of Auntie Rose to hear more powerful stories every day. Stories that don't just entertain but educate, that transform personal tragedy into collective knowledge. Share this video with anyone who needs to hear that survival is possible, that family betrayal isn't their fault, and that choosing self-protection over toxic relationships is not just acceptable, it's necessary. Remember, the greatest lesson from Margaret's story is this: love yourself first, protect yourself always, and never let anyone, not even family, convince you that your life is worth less than their comfort. This knowledge might save your life. To everyone watching this video, I wish you good health, daily joy, and peace in your hearts. May you have the strength to face hard truths and the wisdom to protect yourselves from those who would exploit your love. Until we meet again in the next video, remember, you are valuable, you deserve respect, and your life matters more than anyone's greed. Goodbye for now, and see you in our next story.